Chapter 2194. Su Yu looked at Duan Yanqing and said, Mr. Duan, you can take a blow from Shuiwei Great Master without dying, which shows that you are also an expert. Why do you need to stay in a small country like Xixia? There will be a bigger stage for you to display your skills in Mongolia. Duan Yanqing chuckled and said in a hoarse voice, I'm quite used to staying in Xixia, and I don't like to do things that will make me famous. Su Yiwu was not annoyed and continued, I heard that the throne of Dali originally belonged to Mr. Duan, but unfortunately, it was stolen by Duan Zhengming and Duan Zhengshan. Mr. Duan has been in Xixia for many years, and Xixia clearly does not have the ability to help you restore the throne. But Mongolia is different. Mr. Duan, you should think about it. Song Qingshu cursed in his heart. This matter happened to be a knot in Duan Yanqing's heart. As expected, when he heard these words, his eyes flashed, and he did not refute them for a moment. Instead, he fell silent. Shuiwei Great Master was displeased that Su Yiwu had recruited a defeated opponent. She said coldly, Xixia's Class 1 Hall has recruited all the Class 1 halls in the world. Today, I see that you are just SOSO. How arrogant. A charming and cold voice came. Everyone turned around and saw a slender and graceful woman in white slowly descending from the sky. A light wind blew, and she floated like a fairy. Although her face was covered with a light veil, her features were picturesque, and they could still tell that she was an extremely beautiful woman. Goddess, when Duan Yu saw the woman, he felt as if he had been struck by lightning. He clearly remembered the statue of the goddess in the Jade Cave, every part of her skin and every part of her skirt. Although this woman was masked, she looked exactly the same as the goddess, and even more so than Miss Wang. Song Qingshu was a little surprised. Why was Li Qiushui here? Wasn't she healing Wu Yazi at Beating Drum Mountain? Old princess. Some of the veterans of Class 1 Hall could not help but become excited when they saw Li Qiushui. It had to be known that Class 1 Hall had been built because of Li Qiushui. That Japanese over there. Were you the one who said that Class 1 Hall was just SOSO? Li Qiushui's appearance was accompanied by an imposing aura. He had casually fought with the warriors of the Western Xia, but the declining situation of the warriors of the Western Xia had changed in an instant. Every one of them looked excited. The expressions of the people from the Shuiwei Great Sect changed. Dong Ying had been in contact with the imperial court of the Central Plains for a long time, and they did not mind being called the pirates. Later on, they realized that the word pirates was derived from the dwarves, and they became extremely sensitive to this insulting word. How dare you? When the mountain attendant behind Watermoon's sect saw her insult his master, he could not help but fly into a rage. He drew the thick saber on his back and swung it at her. He was tall, and his saber was thick and long. When he swung it, he was like a charging heavy cavalier, and he could cut anything that blocked his path in half. Most of the Class 1 Hall elites who had just rushed into the courtyard were injured by him. Watermoon's sect frowned, but in the end, he did not stop her. He could not quite figure out Li Qiushui's fighting style, and it would be good for him to have the mountain attendant test her strength. Among elements, the mountain attendant was the one with the highest martial arts, and his defense was very good. Even if he could not win, he would not be in danger. When Li Qiushui saw the mountain attendant rush over, she did not pay him any mind. Instead, she looked at the injuries on the Class 1 Hall warriors and noticed that many of them were badly mangled. They had been injured by the thick saber, and a hint of killing intent flashed in her eyes. She lifted her slender hand, and even though she looked relaxed, the mountain attendant who was halfway through the charge sensed an instinctive sense of danger. Careful retreat. Watermoon sect also noticed that something was off and quickly reminded her. No matter how great her palm force was, it would still be depleted when she was in the air. Besides, he had another secret weapon. He wanted to read it. He took out a turtle shell-shaped shield from his back. Over the years, he had used this shield to block countless attacks. Right now, Japan was in the Warring States period, and all the factions of power fought to use firearms. This shield of his could even withstand a volley of firearms, so he was undefeatable. However, His smile soon froze because a huge force traveled into his ears, and his head instantly shattered like a watermelon. His last thought was, this palm force can actually turn? Song Qing-shu naturally recognized that this was Li Qiushui's unique ultimate technique, White Rainbow Palm Force. Its greatest characteristic was that it could bend at will. It might seem like it was facing the enemy head-on, but in truth, the direction of the palm force could change at any moment. Shaolin's formless finger of disaster was said to be formless and formless. But to Song Qing-shu, in terms of formlessness and formlessness, it could not compare to White Rainbow Palm Force. Mountain Attendant, the remaining Feng, Lin, Hua, and the others cried out in surprise. They had fought together for many years, and now that they saw their companions dying so tragically, they could not help but feel a little sad. Baka, miss, aren't you a little too ruthless? Watermoon, Sek took a step forward and glared at Li Qiushui. Miss, by the side, Song Qing-shu had a strange expression on his face. He thought that this Watermoon sect was really a fool. Li Qiushui was old enough to be their mother, and they still called her a miss? Of course, Li Qiushui had a technique to maintain her youthful appearance. Right now, she looked like a young lady, and it was very easy for people who did not know the truth to mistake her for someone else. A hint of a smile appeared on Li Qiushui's face. It was clear that she liked this miss a lot. You guys injured my people first. This is just a small lesson. Oh well, for the sake of this miss, I'll spare your life today. You want to forget about killing someone just like that? Watermoon's sect knew very well that if he did not regain his dignity today, he would lose all his prestige. Forget about the fact that the Mongolians had plenty of elites under their command. They would fight against each other for resources. Even his own subordinates might have thoughts about him. A clear Watermoon appeared, and he had already unsheathed his saber. Song Qing-shu nodded to himself as he watched. This Watermoon sect saber technique had indeed reached great accomplishment, and it was somewhat similar to Full Moon Saber. However, compared to that demonic saber, it was still slightly lacking. As expected, Li Qiushui's expression was no longer as relaxed as when she was with the mountain attendant. When the saber came slashing at her, her figure flashed, and she used extremely ingenious footwork to avoid the saber that the opponent was determined to kill. Her figure was graceful and moving, and her white dress was truly astonishing when she dodged. Compared to Duan Yu, who was a man, she was even more in line with the essence of wave-like, subtle steps. What kind of amazing lightness skill is this? Su Yiwu, who was watching from the side, also revealed a hint of amazement. Fang Yu, who was at the side, answered, it should be the carefree sect's wave-like, subtle steps. Prince Duan of Dali also used it in the arena. In terms of movement and dodging, there is no one in the world who can compare to his lightness skill. He was called the Little Devil Master not only because he was the disciple of the Devil Master Pangban, but also because of his own intelligence. He was originally a role like a military advisor. The Mongolians had been planning to invade the south for a long time, and he had investigated all kinds of information in the Central Plains in advance. So he was very familiar with these things. Su Yiwu licked his lips. This woman is not bad. Is it possible to rope her into the prince's mansion? Fang Yiyu had a strange expression on his face. He had followed Su Yiwu for a long time, so he naturally knew what this prince was thinking at the moment. He could not help but weigh his words before reminding Su Yiwu, I'm afraid that's not very realistic. She is the old princess of Xixia. Although she looks young, her actual age is probably a few years older than the Khan. The princess of this marriage selection is her granddaughter. Chapter 2195. Song Qing-shu, who was in the distance, heard their conversation clearly and could not help but want to laugh. But then again, although Li Qiushui was old, she did look like a young married woman. It was quite deceiving. He did not know if Li Qiushui heard their conversation, but she probably did not. Otherwise, with her personality, she would probably tear this prince apart. At this time, Li Qiushui and Shuiwe Great Sect were fighting fiercely. Shuiwe Great Sect was worthy of being ranked third in all of Dongying. Her self-created shui blade technique had already touched upon the traces of Tao. A cold light was like a cool breeze blowing over a hill, like a bright moon shining on a great river. Everything was so natural and smooth, but the blade technique hid the will of the god of death. Li Qiuxue was like a spirit under the moon, using the wave-like subtle steps to the extreme. Her entire body turned into countless white afterimages, dodging the killing intent of the other's blade technique while waiting for an opportunity to counterattack with the power of the white rainbow palm. Shuiwei Great Sect had just seen the mountain attendant die under this palm, so she was naturally on guard. The two of them fought more and more bravely, neither daring to be distracted at all. In the distance, Feng Yeyu frowned slightly. "Prince, do you think Shuiwei Great Sect can defeat that woman?" "It's hard to say." Su Liewu's expression was serious. Shuiwei Great Sect's martial arts are extremely high. Even in Mongolia, they are one of the top experts. But this woman's Qin Gong is too amazing. It can be said that she is undefeatable. As time goes on, I'm afraid it will be disadvantageous for Shuiwei Great Sect. Of course, when experts fight, many times it's just a matter of an instant. No one can tell the result until the end. Feng Yi whispered in his ear, "Prince, Ying Fei and the others will probably finish their mission and return soon. In my opinion, why don't we send them away as soon as possible?" Ying Fei was a young expert who was as famous as him. At the same time, he was also his most respected good friend. Whether it was intelligence or martial arts, he was not below him. Even Demon Master Pang Ban thought highly of him. This time, he had been sent to assist Su Liewu. He had also participated in the martial arts competition for a spouse. Tonight, he had received another mission and left. "That's right." Su Liewu nodded and took a step forward. He said loudly, "Both of you, please stop for now. Everything that happened today is just a misunderstanding. You think that we slaughtered the Goryeo diplomatic group and hid the Goryeo crown prince. We have a clear conscience and will let you search." As he spoke, he gestured for his subordinates to make way for him, looking as though he was ready to let them investigate. Fu Jinyu couldn't help but curse in a low voice. They said the same thing just now, but they didn't take it seriously at all. But when they saw a super expert from Xixia, they immediately asked them to investigate it. They are all bastards who bully the weak and fear the strong. Fu Junyi held her sister's hand with a bitter expression. Currently, Gao Li was indeed the weakest and most easily bullied. Song Qingshu frowned. Since Su Liewu was so fearless and let people go in to investigate, then the Crown Prince of Goryeo was most likely not inside. Yalu Nancian also glanced at him discreetly. It was clear that she was thinking the same thing. But now that it had come to this, it was hard for them to stop. They could only wave their hands and have the warriors under them enter the courtyard to investigate. Shuiwei Great Sect and Li Qiuxue naturally stopped. Both sides returned to their own camps. Shuiwei Great Sect looked at the other warily. She didn't expect a woman to have such high martial arts. What does His Highness mean? Is the mountain attendant going to die for nothing? Wind Maiden muttered in dissatisfaction. Lin Shi hurriedly pulled on her sleeve. "Be quiet. You dare to question His Highness? Do you not want a life anymore?" Wind Maiden was somewhat indignant. She had wanted to find Shuiwei Great Sect to reason things out, but she found that her master's expression was dark. He didn't even look at the dead mountain attendant, nor did he have any intention of avenging him. She couldn't help but feel sad for the death of a rabbit. When Li Qiuxue returned to Xixia's side, he glanced at Yalu Nancian. "You are the Crown Prince's new concubine? You are indeed a peerless beauty. It's no wonder that father and son became enemies because of you." Yalu Nancian couldn't help but feel very awkward. At first, Li Yuanhao wanted to make her the Crown Prince's concubine, but he casually sent a maid to replace her. This was the root cause of the series of turmoil in Xixia. However, after the situation calmed down, the court officials still restored her status as the Crown Prince's concubine. This could be considered to have settled the matter, and no one would mention it again. Who would have thought that Li Qiuxue didn't have any qualms about this? Yalu Nancian saw the miraculous martial arts she used to kill the mountain attendant with a smile. She also had a special status in Elite Hall. Yalu Nancian couldn't help but feel a little afraid, but she quickly remembered that her lover was still here. She immediately regained her composure. This concubine greets the old concubine. Li Qiushui nodded in satisfaction. Not bad, not bad. This bearing is indeed graceful and noble. I heard that you have a good relationship with Qinglu. Little sister Qinglu is a very good person and treats me well. Yalu Nancian thought. How could she not be good? Even her man is the same. Li Qiushui was just about to say something when a dazed voice came from the side. Fairy sister. Li Qiushui turned around and couldn't help but smile. So it's young Master Duan. The two of them had met once before at the Drum-Beating Mountains Jinlong chess game. She had always liked handsome young men, so she naturally remembered this dazed air. It's me, it's me. Duan Yu's expression shook. Fairy sister actually still remembers me. Duan Yu is really lucky. Li Qiushui trembled at his teasing. The two of them quickly started chatting. They didn't have time to talk to Yalu Nancian anymore. In the distance, Song Qingshu felt a chill run down his spine. He thought that this Li Qiushui's appetite was really good. She was already so old and still wanted fresh meat. Also, Duan Yu was trying to curry favor with her grandmother. He didn't know what Miss Wang would think if she found out. In just a short while, the people from Class 1 Hall had already finished inspecting the guest house and came out. Yalu Nancian went up to them with a face full of anticipation, but they all shook their heads without a trace. She could not help but sigh in her heart. As expected, the Fu sisters immediately became anxious. Fu Junyu said, "Could it be hidden in some secret room?" Song Qingshu shook his head and said, "They won't. While the people from Class 1 Hall might not be very skilled, they have a lot of amazing people and strange things. Not a single secret chamber can escape their discerning eyes. Also, this guest house was prepared by Western Xia, so they naturally know the situation inside." Fu Jinyu couldn't help but feel disappointed. Then where did they take the crown prince? Su Liu laughed loudly. Now our Mongolian innocence has been proven. This prince has already said that what happened to the Goryeo ambassadors tonight has nothing to do with us. If you ask me, it's your Western Xia who lost the crown prince of Goryeo and can't find him, so you want us Mongolians to take the blame. Yalu Nancian said coldly. Prince, please be careful with your words. I believe everyone knows who the mastermind is tonight. Chapter 2196. Yalu Nancian's face was gloomy. She waved her hand and left with the warriors of the first hall. She knew that the Goryeo crown prince had fallen into a passive position. It would be a waste of breath to stay here and say more. Tomorrow, we will formally inform the imperial court of this matter in the form of a diplomatic note. At that time, we will need the crown princess to personally apologize to our lord. Fang Yeyu shouted at Yalu Nancian's back. Tomorrow's matters will be discussed tomorrow. Yalu Nancian snorted and left. Li Qiushui hesitated and also left. Duan Yu wanted to chase after them, but was stopped by Xiao Feng. He knew that the Western Xia side must be discussing and making a move at this time. At this time, the Western Xia crown princess had no time to care about anything else. Moreover, Duan Yu pestered the crown princess like an idiot. It was a bit outrageous. Xiao Feng did not want his sworn brother to be a laughingstock. He took the opportunity to drag him away in the name of drinking more. Sister, what do we do now? Seeing the people around them leave, Fu Junyu's face showed a trace of helplessness. Fu Junyu bit her lips. She could not think of any way and felt that the future was bleak. Young master, what do you think? She did not know why, but she subconsciously asked the foppish young master that she had always looked down on. But what shocked her even more was that the other's face was gloomy and he had an indescribable aura. What's wrong? Fu Junyi asked worriedly. Song Qingshu came back to his senses and forced a smile. Nothing. Also, you do not need to worry. Since Su Liu chose to capture you and the crown prince alive, it proves that you are more useful to him alive. So, your crown prince's life will not be in danger for the time being. At this time, there was a raging anger in his heart. Su Liu's group had been too arrogant recently. It was irritating to see. At this time, Wang Baobao looked on coldly from afar and secretly cursed the Western Xia for being useless. Just as he was about to leave, Su Liu called out, "Wang Bao Bao, I will repay you double for what you have given me today in the future." Wang Bao Bao snorted coldly. "Who doesn't know how to talk big? If I have a grudge against you, I will do it on the spot. There is no need to wait. Why don't we practice first?" Su Lai was rebutted by him. His expression was so ugly that it was as if he had eaten a dead fly. It was Fang Yu, who was at the side, who helped him out of the predicament. "Two princes, now that you are in a foreign country, why must you fight among yourselves and let other countries laugh at you?" At the same time, he said to Su Liu through secret sound transmission, "Prince, the Ryong mansion won't last long. Why do you have to lower yourself to their level?" Only then did Su Liu's expression soften. Wang laughed coldly, and Wang 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 Wang, I Wang Wang King King. Wang, I of Prince I of Fu, Fu Prince Fu Fu, Fu Prince Fu Yun, and a Fu, and Fu 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 Prince Fu Ah? Fu Junyu finally reacted. That bastard. Hearing the sisters' voices, Su Liu turned around. Seeing the beautiful sisters, he felt much better after being bullied by Wang Bao Bao. "You two ladies have met with a disaster today, and we still don't know who the mastermind is. The entire Xingqing mansion is in chaos. You two ladies are in danger at all times. Why don't you stay in our house for a while? I am not boasting, but there is no place in the entire Xingqing mansion that is safer than our house. Tui, you were the biggest villain." Fu Junyu scolded him mercilessly. Fu Junyu also said coldly, "If you don't want others to know, then don't do it. We will definitely save the crown prince." Compared to Wang Bao Bao, Su Liu's tolerance towards beauties was much higher. He still had a smile on his face. "Ladies, do you have some misunderstanding toward this king? This king has no enmity with Goryeo, so why would I try to kill you? Could it be that I have been provoked by someone with ulterior motives?" As he spoke, his gaze fell on Song Qing-shu. Fu Junyu frowned slightly. She really wasn't sure if the person who had come tonight had been sent by the Mongols, but she only hesitated for a moment. She immediately replied, "We naturally know who is worth trusting. There is no need for you to worry." Su Liu shook his head. "I am worried that you too have trusted the wrong person. In today's chaotic times, only the strongest man can protect his women. It is clear that the person beside you, TSK, he shook his head with a look of disdain. It was clear that he did not think much of the son of a noble from the Southern Song dynasty. Furthermore, his father was no longer the most powerful official in the Southern Song dynasty. Fu Junyu pulled on Song Qingshu's sleeve with some worry. "Don't lower yourself to his level. Let's go." She was a few years older than her sister, and clearly understood that men tended to get into fights over things like this. Right now, Su Liu was a Mongol prince with a large army under his command, and there were many experts under his command. Getting into a conflict with him would be disadvantageous. Song Qingshu gave her a reassuring look and replied indifferently, "Your Highness's words don't make sense. Since only the strongest man can protect his women, then why don't your Highness's concubines go serve Temujin? He is the strongest man in all of Mongolia, isn't that right?" Su Liu's expression instantly turned ugly. Most importantly, he couldn't refute these words. Did he dare say that he was stronger than his grandfather? What was going on today? Why did he keep bumping into such a troublesome person? "How dare you be so rude to your Highness?" A man next to Su Liu roared. He pounced on Song Qingshu like a giant eagle. In the blink of an eye, he reached out his hand and grabbed Song Qingshu's face. His name was Yu Chidi, nicknamed Vulture because of his bald head. He was one of the 8 great imperial guards of the Ming Emperor, along with Qi Mei, Chong Wangsheng, Vulture Yu Chidi, and the 2 devils of the Ming family. In the early years, they had killed countless enemies. In recent years, Temujin had made great progress in his martial arts. These people were no longer in charge of guarding the Khan, but were often sent to help the princes. Fu Junyu was shocked. If it were any other day, she could block the attack, but now that she was seriously injured, there was no time for her to draw her sword. A hint of killing intent flashed between Song Qingshu's eyebrows. Suddenly, he noticed something and his frowning eyebrows slowly relaxed. He saw a slender, jade-like hand reaching out from the ground and gently catching the eagle's claw. In the blink of an eye, the two hands exchanged several moves. Yuchidi let out a muffled groan and flew back. After he steadied himself, he looked at the handsome young man in yellow with fear and asked, "What kind of claw technique is this?" Chapter 2197. Song Qing-shu had an innocent expression. "You can't blame me for this. It's them who are being unreasonable." The person who had come was naturally the yellow-robed woman. With such a big commotion, it was impossible that the Southern Song Embassy had not heard of it. However, they had not shown themselves because they did not want to cause trouble. Seeing that her companion was in danger, she naturally would not remain indifferent. "Sir, you are young, but your martial arts are very high. Which master are you?" Su Liu asked. "It is not convenient to mention my master's name. Please forgive me, Your Highness." The yellow-robed woman's tone was polite. The Southern Song and Mongolia had stopped fighting, and the relationship between the two sides had been good. She did not want to offend the other. "Since that is the case, I will give you face today and not make things difficult for him." With Su Liu's eyesight, it was easy to see that the yellow-robed woman was a woman disguised as a man. But he will not be so lucky to hide behind a woman every time. The first sentence was directed at the yellow-robed woman, and the second sentence was directed at Song Qing-shu. It was obvious that he wanted the beauties to see his incompetence. Song Qing-shu's expression was calm. "It is easy to get into trouble if one is so arrogant." Su Liu laughed loudly. "Fate is just an excuse for the weak to be useless. This king has millions of soldiers and many experts. Who could do anything to me?" Worried that Song Qing-shu would continue to speak and anger the other, the yellow-robed woman quickly pulled him away. All right, let's go back." Song Qing-shu did not refuse. He knew that she was worried about Jia Baoyu's safety. While she did not think much of this second generation, they were both from the Southern Song. She did not want to see her companion be bullied by foreigners. After leaving the Mongolian embassy, the yellow-robed woman asked the Fu sisters, "What plans do you two have?" Even Fu Junyi was slightly confused. "We do not know." The yellow-robed woman thought for a moment and said, "You two are injured right now. I will first send you to Class 1 Hall. The Crown Princess is a very good person and should be able to protect you. We will talk after you recover." The Fu sisters were in a foreign land, and such a disaster had happened today. They had nowhere else to go and could only agree. Song Qing-shu naturally followed. The Fu sisters had a lot on their minds. They were worried about the Crown Prince's safety and also confused about the future, so they did not speak. When they arrived at Class 1 Hall, Yelu Nanxian welcomed them in a very friendly manner. At the same time, she gave Song Qing-shu a look. Song Qing-shu nodded without anyone noticing, and while the Fu sisters and the yellow-robed woman were chatting with her, he found some time to sneak into the inner hall. At this time, Li Qiushui was chatting with Li Qinglu in the back hall. Li Qinglu seemed to have reverted to the appearance of a little girl and kept acting coquettishly in her arms. It seemed like their relationship had always been good. "Senior Li, weren't you taking care of Wu Yazi on Beating Drum Mountain? Could it be that his injuries have healed?" Song Qing-shu had already taken off his mask and returned to his original appearance. Qinglu said Li Qinglu. Li Qiushui did not like to be called grandma. She felt that she was too old, so she called her Qinglu at most. "Old concubine," Li Qinglu said coquettishly. Li Qiushui did not like to be called grandma. She felt that she was too old, so she called her old concubine at most. Li Qiushui rubbed her hair. "I was worried about you, but now I'm relieved." Then she answered Song Qing-shu's question. "Everyone in the world knows about the marriage contest in Xixia. I was worried about Qinglu, so I decided to come back to take a look." Song Qing-shu understood what she meant. Wu Yazi doesn't know. Li Qiushui looked a little embarrassed. "You know that Qinglu was with the Xixia after I left him. I was worried that he would think too much, so I came out secretly without letting him know." Song Qing-shu's expression was strange. Li Qiushui was dissolute and coquettish. Li Qinglu was the indirect result of her cheating on Wu Yazi. No man could stand it. No wonder she did not dare to tell him. After chatting for a while, Song Qing-shu remembered something. "By the way, How is Miss Wang recently? What? You hurt one of my granddaughters, and now you're thinking about my other granddaughter? Speaking of which, Yu Yin often asks about you. Li Qiushui rolled her eyes and giggled. Old concubine, Brother Qing Shu is so powerful. It's normal for Sister Yu Yin to like him. We sisters work together. Ahem, it's also a good story. Li Qinglu was very lively. She did not react like ordinary people would when they were jealous. Instead, she looked like she wanted to see the world in chaos. To be honest, you're really an exception. You're so young, but your martial arts are so high. You have so many forces under your command. Most importantly, you're so handsome. I like you just by looking at you. If it weren't for your relationship with Qinglu, I might also want to have a taste of you. Li Qiushui rolled her eyes as if she was looking at Tang Song. Song Qing Shu had a strange expression. He thought that with Li Qiushui's temper, if his martial arts were lower, he might really be raped by her. Even though Li Qinglu was mischievous, she was also scared. Old concubine, Li Qiushui giggled. I'm just teasing you. After a pause, she continued. Yu Yin is doing well. In addition, Wu Yazi has been teaching her martial arts recently. She's making good progress. She's willing to learn martial arts? Song Qing Shu was a little surprised. Didn't you teach her the Holy Light Scripture? Li Qiushui rolled her eyes. She studies it day and night like it's a treasure. She often comes to ask for advice on things she doesn't understand. After a while, Wu Yazi started to teach her martial arts. She didn't learn martial arts before because she thought it was not elegant for girls to learn fighting and killing. However, the martial arts of our Xiaoyao sect are not powerful. The most important thing is that they are elegant and beautiful. When you fight, it's like dancing. Of course, she likes it. I see. Song Qingshu nodded. He wanted to ask more, but suddenly, Yalun Nancian rushed in. Something happened again. Seeing her serious expression, Song Qingshu hurriedly asked, What's wrong? When we were surrounding the Mongolian guest house, something happened at Krazimo's guest house as well. Madame Jeanne was kidnapped. Yalun Nancian said quickly. Zalandin left with his men. Madame Jeanne pretended to be him to participate in the marriage contest. Someone must have seen her during the group competition. The Mongolians are too much. Song Qingshu didn't need to think to know that it was the Mongolians who did it. No wonder Fang Yiyu and Su Liuwu said those things. What do we do now? We didn't find any evidence at the Mongolians. If we go now, we'll probably be backstabbed. Yalun Nancian had a headache. Evidence? The strong are respected in this world. What evidence do we need? Song Qingshu suddenly stood up. He had been restraining himself, but Su Liuwu didn't play by the rules. He couldn't blame him for giving him a taste of his own medicine. I'm going out for a while. Do you want me to go with you to the Mongolian guest house to teach them a lesson? Li Qiushui was also a little afraid of the Shueiyue sect. Chapter 2198. In a Mongolian guest house, Zolwa looked at the beautiful woman who was tied up in front of him. She was mature and plump, her satin smooth and delicate skin so delicate that water could be squeezed out. Her plump body made it difficult for him, who was used to seeing West and East European women, to breathe. Being tied up by ropes, it outlined her plump and round legs, making her appear especially attractive. His bad mood, which had been disturbed by all sorts of things tonight, improved slightly. Madame Jeanne, you will not be able to escape from me. Huh? Madame Jeanne turned her face away and sighed. She had not thought that young master would be captured by the Mongolians as soon as he left. He would probably be disappointed in her. If you were not a beautiful woman, you would already be dead. Zolwa's gaze wandered Wuji fearfully over the woman in front of him. Her skin was as white as milk, and her waist was slender. She really was a beauty. As expected of the intelligent Madame Jeanne, to use such a camouflage to allow Zalandin and the others to escape. When the prince returns, he will rise again to take revenge for me. Falling into the hands of the Mongolians again, Madame Jeanne had not thought that she would be able to survive, so her expression was calm. Rise again? With just Zalandin? Zolwa laughed. The Horazm at its peak was destroyed by the Mongolians. He is just a stray dog. What can he do? Originally, with Madame as the strategist, he could occasionally harass our rear. Now, without Madame, he is just Zalandin, not worth mentioning. Madame Jeanne shook her head. The prince is a heroic person. He is fated to be defeated and not defeated. As long as he does not die, there will be a chance. Since your prince is so important, after talking about business, Zulwa had a frivolous smile on his face. Madame caused me to lose the chance to capture him. How do you plan to compensate me? Madame Jeanne frowned. She was smart and naturally understood the hidden meaning in the other's words. Wang Yi has many beauties by his side. Why do you have to make things difficult for me? Why don't you give me a quick death so that our years of enmity will not be in vain? Killing you is too much of a waste. Su Liuwu shook his head. After all, Madame was the #1 beauty of Khwarazmi in the past. On the day Samarkand fell, Madame accidentally escaped. Even our great Khan was heartbroken. Madame Jeanne spat and cursed. You bunch of Mongolian devils like to rape other people's wives and daughters. Sooner or later, there will be a day when you will face retribution. Retribution? You weaklings will only comfort yourselves with this. Sulai stood up and gazed at the northern sky. My grandfather once said something that I have always agreed with. That is, defeating the enemy, uprooting them, seizing everything they have, making their married women cry and weep, riding their sleek steeds, using the bellies of their beautiful concubines as pajamas and cushions, gazing at their rosy cheeks, kissing them, sucking their sweet pink lips. This is the greatest pleasure of a man. Hearing his words, Madame Jeanne was so angry that her entire body trembled. Shameless. Su Liuwu did not mind. Oh, I remember now. Madame seemed to have been engaged to someone back then. Unfortunately, on the day Samarkand fell, your pitiful fiancé died in battle. Who would have thought that you would not change your mind and not marry someone else? Instead, you called yourself Madame, causing most people to forget your original name. Hearing him mention the past, a trace of deep hatred appeared in Madame Jeanne's eyes. I only hate that I cannot personally avenge him. It's not that there is no chance, Su Liuwu said with a smile. Last time, I told Madame that when a man is the happiest, his guard will be much weaker. Madame, why don't you give it a try? In your dreams, I will definitely not serve you. Madame Jeanne's face was dyed red. It was unknown whether it was from anger or embarrassment. Last time, in order to assassinate him, she had indeed thought of something similar. However, in the end, she discovered that Su Liuwu's martial arts were hidden deeply. All of her plans were futile. Naturally, she would not try that again. I love to watch Chinese websites. That is truly a pity. However, using force will be even more exciting. Su Liuwu walked in front of her, bringing with him a strange sense of oppression. These years, I have conquered countless countries. What I like the most is to hear the sounds of their wives and daughters struggling and crying. You, seeing the other come closer and closer, even with Madame Jeanne's firm will, she could not help but feel some despair. Death was not scary. What was scary was suffering and indescribable humiliation. Furthermore, the other was the enemy who had killed her husband. If she was really sullied by him today, her fiancé would probably not be able to rest in peace in the underworld. Su Liuwu reached out to touch her clothes. Suddenly, a panicked voice came from outside the door. Wang Yi, it's bad. Just when he was in high spirits, Su Liuwu suddenly turned around and said darkly, This king has just given the order not to disturb me. If you cannot give me a satisfactory reason, this day next year will be the anniversary of your death. An expert has charged into the guest house. The subordinate hurriedly replied, Just kill him on the spot. Su Liuwu snorted coldly. Experts. The Mongolians did not lack experts. If it was any other time, he might have interrogated the other's identity and background. However, today, with a beauty in front of him, he did not have the time to waste on a man. But that person's martial arts are too high. We cannot stop him, the subordinate said with some shame. Cannot stop him? Su Liuwu was unable to react. What did he mean by cannot stop him? The Mongolians had many capable people under their command. At the same time, they also had the most elite warriors in the world. For so many years, no assassin had been able to get close to him, except for that time with the old man in the mountain. However, that was an assassin organization that had been passed down for 1,000 years. This time, there was clearly only one person. Wang Yi, quickly come out and take a look. This person is slightly troublesome. He seems to be Bright Sword Master Fu Kalin from Goryeo. Fang Yu's figure also appeared outside the door. From his slightly nervous voice, he could hear the meaning of trouble. Seeing that Fang Yu had come to invite him, Su Yiwu did not dare to ignore him. He hurriedly stood up. After taking a few steps, he turned around and pulled Madame Jeanne up. "Madam, come with me. Let's see what happens to those who go against the Mongolian Empire." He had the intention to show off his strength in front of Madame Jeanne. Regardless of whether it was in terms of power or other aspects, he wanted to completely conquer this woman, both physically and mentally. At this moment, Madame Jeanne's heart did not waver. No matter how high this person's martial arts were, he would not be able to deal with so many experts on the Mongolian side, unless it was that young master. Her ending had long been decided. Without any expectations, she naturally did not have any ripples in her heart. After Su Yiwu went out, he asked Fang Yiyu, "Shouldn't Fu Kalin be in Goryeo? Why did he suddenly appear here?" Fang Yiyu also had a puzzled expression. "I don't know either. However, looking at his sword technique, there is no doubt that it is the bright sword technique. Furthermore, his cultivation level is much higher than the Fu sisters. In this world, the only person who can reach this level in the bright sword technique is Fu Kalin." "Where is Huashan?" Su Yiwu asked in a deep voice. Fang Yiyu replied, "The old man in the mountain has not returned yet. Furthermore, after what happened just now, it is not appropriate for him to appear in the guest house. Should I send someone to invite him over?" Chapter 2199. Su Yiwu followed Fang Yiyu to the courtyard in the front hall. He finally understood why his subordinate had said in such a terrified tone that they could not stop him. He saw a man in a long robe with long black hair, holding a sword. He faced the many battle-hardened Mongolian warriors as if he was invincible. No matter how valiantly the Mongolian warriors charged forward, what awaited them was the cold tip of the sword and death. It was as if the opponent's sword was already there, waiting for them to deliver their necks to it. Demon, he's a demon. Even though the Mongolian warrior was used to seeing death, he was still a little scared. The person in front of him had an unusually narrow face. His facial features were all flaws that no one would want to have. It was as if they were all squeezed together, making his forehead look especially high. His lower jaw was long and slender, and it was a little cumbersome. His crooked nose bridge was disproportionately large, making his eyes and mouth look even smaller. His face was extremely uncoordinated and strange. Coupled with his ghost-like sword skills, he looked like a devil from hell. Don't try to disrupt the army's morale. This is just the bright sword technique of Goryeo. Seeing that his subordinates were showing signs of breaking down, Su Yiwu immediately circulated his energy and roared. Su Yiwu's army was very strict. When they heard the words, "disrupt the army's morale," the panicked people immediately shut their mouths. This was a serious offense in the army, and they could be beheaded at any time. Seeing Su Yiwu's arrival and understanding that this was a type of martial arts, the Mongolian soldiers gradually calmed down. However, they could only barely maintain their formation. It was impossible for them to stop the opponent. Seeing his elite soldiers being slaughtered, Su Yiwu's eyelids twitched. Fang Yiyu hurriedly said, "Prince, this person is always able to enter our country before the soldiers can surround us. This is not a plain area, and it is suitable for cavalry to reunite and display their advantage in numbers. If we let them continue, they will only be sending them to their deaths." "Prince, leave it to me," a sinister man said. Madame Jeanne immediately recognized him as the former top expert of Khwarezm, Wolfman. Unfortunately, when the Mongolians arrived, he quickly surrendered to them and killed many of their experts. This time, he had also contributed greatly to her capture. "Be careful." Su Yiwu frowned slightly. However, he felt that it was good to let him try. After all, the difference in martial arts between the previous warriors and the enemy was too great. It was difficult to see any clues. "What bright sword technique? I think it's just a bluff." Budi snorted coldly. In his opinion, the opponent's swordsmanship was a little pretentious. Only those soldiers with low kung fu would fall for it. He had been watching from the side and felt that every time it was the soldiers who were stupid enough to touch the tip of the sword. If it were him, he would never fall for such a low-level trick. A tragic and desolate wolf's howl added a chill to the courtyard. Budi's martial arts had been deeply influenced by the demon sect, and he had modified the demon sect's sound wave technique into a wolf's howl that was most suitable for him. Usually, it could cause the enemy's mind to waver, and they would suffer a crushing defeat before they even fought. Many of the Mongolian warriors covered their ears in pain when they heard his howls, and those with weaker cultivation even fainted. Fang Yiyu couldn't help but frown and say, "This Budi always attacks indiscriminately without differentiating between friend and foe. Previously, there was a situation where he turned our soldiers into idiots. Even now, he still hasn't changed." Unexpectedly, Su Liu didn't take it to heart at all. He smiled and said, "Every expert has their own unique habits. What we need to do is to completely bring out their strengths and make use of them instead of restraining them in all sorts of ways." "Your Highness is right." Fang Yiyu thought otherwise. He thought to himself, Su Liu is of noble birth and doesn't care about the lives of low-level soldiers, but he can always win battles. The horrifying wolf's howl was about to reach its climax when it suddenly stopped. The two of them hurriedly looked over and saw that Fu Kalin had pulled his sword out of Su Liu's neck. He looked at the bloodstains on the tip of the sword with some disgust. The ghostly howl and the wolf's howl are so unpleasant. He died just like that. Su Liu's face was full of disbelief. Just now, it was as if his vision had blurred, and Budi had died just like those soldiers from before. It was as if he had taken the initiative to crash into the tip of Su Liu's sword and die. Using one sword to defeat one's enemy. Fusing chess theory into swordsmanship actually has such a miraculous effect. Fang Yiyu didn't understand what was going on either, and he couldn't help but feel a chill run down his spine when he thought of this. At this moment, a black figure silently grabbed at Fu Kalin from behind. Su Liu and Fang Yiyu were overjoyed. They recognized that the other party was Vulture, Yuchidi. It should be known that Yuchidi used to be one of the 8 great protectors by the side of the Mongolian Great Khan. Even though his martial arts were not as good as the head of the 8 great protectors, Li Qimei, the fact that he was one of the 8 great protectors proved that he was a top-notch expert. Yuchidi's nickname Vulture was not only because of his bald head, but also because of his eagle's claw technique. It could be said that it was as easy as turning over a palm for him to destroy rocks. Another reason was that his qin gong was superb, and he was as fast as an eagle. He could also pounce on his prey silently like an eagle. Seeing that his fingertips were about to touch the other party's shoulder, Yuchidi was overjoyed. He thought that if he was caught by his eagle's claw technique, then no matter how good his martial arts were, he wouldn't be able to use it. Thinking that he was about to kill a world-famous expert, his status in Mongolia would probably rise. He might not be able to stand shoulder to shoulder with people like Basiba and Pangban, but he would at least be able to stand on equal footing with people like Jinlu and Fuwang. Thinking of this, he suddenly felt a chill in his throat. He lowered his head and saw that a sword was slowly being pulled back from his neck. His last thought was, "Is this my blood? There's a path to heaven, but you refuse to take it. There's no door to hell, but you barge in." Fu Kalin snorted coldly. Previously, he was also the one who sneak-attacked him. Fortunately, the yellow-robed girl came to his rescue and saved his life. He didn't expect that he would come to his death again so soon. That's right, this Fu Kalin was naturally Song Qingshu in disguise. He had been tolerating the arrogance and despotism of Mongolia's Su Liu and the others for the sake of the big picture. He didn't expect that the other party would become more and more excessive. Today, the continuous robberies of other countries' embassies made him unable to hold back his anger. He decided to let this Mongolian prince know that Mongolia had not yet unified the world. Of course, Song Qingshu also didn't want to bring disaster to Xixia because of a moment of impulsiveness. Now that Xixia had just ended the coup d'etat, they were not ready to defend against foreign enemies. Therefore, He needed to find a sucker to take the blame for him. The bright sword master of Goryeo, Fu Kalin, was the most suitable candidate. First of all, his martial arts were high enough, and he had the ability to directly attack the Mongolian embassy. Secondly, he had the motive. The Mongolians had just annihilated their diplomatic mission, and the crown prince of Goryeo was missing. Lastly, he was far away in Goryeo. No one in the Central Plains had seen him. At the same time, what happened here couldn't be transmitted back to Goryeo. Even if it was transmitted back, Fu Kalin could only watch helplessly and take the blame. Chapter 2200. Su Yewu and Fang Yiyu were stunned on the spot. They had thought that Yuchidi's sneak attack had succeeded, but they did not expect that the situation would be reversed in the next second. Seeing blood gurgling out of Yuchidi's neck, Fang Yiyu felt a chill on his neck. Senior Fu, Mongolia has never had any enmity with Goryeo. Is there a misunderstanding? If he could suppress the other party with absolute martial strength, he would naturally be too lazy to reason with them. But now it was obvious that the other party was powerful, so he still had to reason with them. Misunderstanding. Song Qingshu sneered. When you slaughtered my Goryeo diplomat group, why didn't you say it was a misunderstanding? Fang Yiyu smiled sheepishly. Senior Fu, please don't listen to the slanderous words of a lowly person. Previously, when Western Xia's Class 1 Hall came to search for our people, they had already proved our innocence. Someone deliberately framed us. Song Qingshu could not be bothered to argue with him. It's fine if you're trying to fool those who don't know the truth, but you're trying to fool me? I'll kill all of you Mongolians one by one to avenge the Goryeo soldiers who died tonight. How arrogant. Fu Kalin, do you really think that you're invincible? A gloomy voice rang out. Shueihua Great Master had already walked out with the three maids, Feng, Lin, and Hua. He had gained a lot from the battle with Li Qiushui just now. After returning, he had gone into seclusion to review the battle. Therefore, although he had heard the commotion outside, he had not come out. He only walked out leisurely after he had completely reviewed the battle. After digesting the battle just now, Shueihua Great Master felt that his martial arts had improved a lot. His realm, which had been stagnant for a long time, seemed to be showing signs of breaking through. At this moment, his confidence had reached perfection. He was confident that he could even fight against Emperor Teacher Ba Siba and Devil Master Pangban. Shueihua Great Master? Song Qingshu frowned. The other party was from Japan, and Japan had always had a close relationship with Goryeo. It was possible that the two of them had met before. Wouldn't his cover be blown? I thought that you were just a frog at the bottom of a well when you proclaimed yourself to be the #1 person in Korea. I didn't expect you to know my name. It seems like you're not that old-fashioned after all. Master Shiyue's face revealed a hint of pride. One had to know that Fu Kalin was someone who was as famous as Japan's two sword saints, Waizumi Shingang and Tsukisahara Sabuchuan. Objectively speaking, Fu Kalin was more famous than him. After all, he was only the third most powerful person in Japan, while Fu Kalin was the strongest person in Goryeo. Of course, after all these years of fighting experience, the Water Moon Great Sect sneered at the combat power of the Koreans. Fu Kalin was the strongest in Korea, so he didn't think that he was weaker than Fu Kalin. All along, he had been very dissatisfied with being inferior to Wizumi Shinsuna and Tsukasa Suzuhara. Unfortunately, he had challenged the two of them several times, but they refused to accept his challenge. Later, when he came to the Central Plains, he had no chance to fight them. If he could defeat Fu Kalin, who was as famous as the two of them, then Japan would acknowledge that there were 3 sword saints, not 2. Are you very confident? Realizing that the Water Moon Great Sect had never seen Fu Kalin before, Song Qingshu heaved a sigh of relief. At the same time, he sensed the strong battle intent from the Water Moon Great Sect. For a moment, he didn't know whether to cry or laugh. He had clearly let Fu Kalin take the blame, but why did he feel like he was helping him to increase his battle achievements? I'm very confident in the blade in my hand. As the Water Moon Great Sect spoke, he had already unsheathed his blade. It was like a crescent moon in the water, quiet and filled with killing intent. At the side, Su Liuwu and Fang Yeyu heaved a sigh of relief. With the water moon great sect around, Fu Kalin was nothing to be afraid of. They might even have a chance to make use of their advantage in numbers and make this number one swordsman of Goryo stay. The water moon great sect let out a low bellow and took the lead to charge toward the other party with his blade. He took a step forward, and the hearts of everyone in the courtyard trembled. It was as if his step was extremely heavy. Seeing that he took a second step, all of them circulated their energy to defend themselves, worried that they would be injured by his inner force again. Unexpectedly, this second step was as light as a feather and did not use any force at all. Many Mongolian warriors felt so uncomfortable that they wanted to vomit blood. They had such a huge reaction when they were only affected by the attack at the edge. Fu Kalin must have felt even more uncomfortable. However, what was surprising was that Fu Kalin still maintained that ugly expression. His expression did not change at all, as if he was a judge from hell. When the Water Moon Great Sect took his third step, even Su Liuwu and Fang Yiyu started to guess whether his step was heavy or light. However, what surprised the two of them was that his third step actually did not really land on the ground. His entire person was like a gust of wind, turning into an afterimage as he directly rushed in front of Fu Kalin. Number 3 Chinese network. Seeing that the other party did not move, the Water Moon Great Sect secretly sneered. With these 3 steps, the aura of his blade technique had already reached its peak. Its power was enough to destroy anything in his path. This Fu Kalin originally had some ability, but it was a pity that he had overestimated himself. In a battle of this level, if he overestimated himself, the only thing that awaited him would be death. Su Liuwu looked excited. This Water Moon Great Sect lives up to his reputation as a super expert that even the Great Khan thinks highly of. The blade in his hand is already half real and half illusory. It can be said that he has already reached the peak of his blade technique. He had always been proud of his martial arts, but when faced with this blade, he knew that he would not be able to dodge it. Fang Yiyu's eyes also lit up. The Water Moon Great Sect seems to have made another breakthrough after his battle with Li Qiushui, and Fu Kalin has overestimated himself by allowing him to completely unleash the power of his blade technique. Although the Bright Sword technique can predict the enemy's moves, it still has its limits. He kept feeling that the principles of the Bright Sword technique were a false proposition. It was fine if he was facing someone whose martial arts were weaker than his, but against an expert of the same level, how could he possibly be able to predict the enemy's moves? He imagined that if his master, the Demon Master Pang Ban, were to make a move, Fu Kalin would not be able to predict his opponent's moves in advance. Just at this moment, Fu Kalin, whom they thought would definitely lose, finally moved. The sword in his hand seemed to pierce through the air. The Water Moon Great Sect frowned. He could not quite see through his opponent's sword, no matter how he thought about it. This sword was destined to only pierce through empty air. Could it be that it could injure him? However, when he thought of his opponent's reputation, the Water Moon Great Sect became a little uncertain. He instinctively retracted 30% of his strength, and then blinked his eyes. Suddenly, to his shock, he discovered that the tip of the sword, which still had a few drops of blood on it, had suddenly appeared in front of his throat. It was so close that he could feel the coldness of the tip of the sword on his skin. How is this possible? This was not just the Water Moon Great Sect's current doubt. It was also what Su Liuwu and Fang Yiyu were feeling. The Water Moon Great Sect had clearly had the upper hand and could have split his opponent in half with just one blade. How was it that in the blink of an eye, he had crashed into the tip of his opponent's sword, just like those Mongolian warriors from before? When they thought of this, the two of them looked at each other and suddenly felt an indescribable chill. After all, the Water Moon Great Sect was one of the top experts in the world. At the critical moment, his footsteps changed, and he narrowly avoided the attack on his throat. Right now, he could only rejoice that he had kept some vigilance. Otherwise, he would probably have died on the spot. However, even though he had avoided the attack on his vitals, his shoulder had still been struck. In that instant, the Water Moon Great Sect was inconsolable, and he could not even hold the long blade in his hand. He used a secret technique to fly back, but the tip of the sword was like a maggot in his bones, following him like a shadow. At this moment, the three sword servants of wind, fire, and forest saw that the situation was not right, and had all drawn their weapons and rushed forward to protect him. However, the Watermoon Great Sect could not feel happy at all. With his cultivation, he knew very well that the three of them would not be able to block this sword at all. Without any hesitation, a hint of ruthlessness flashed between his brows, and he directly kicked the fire servant and forest servant in the back of their hearts, causing them to use their bodies to block the path of the sword. At the same time, he used his uninjured left hand to grab the Wind Maiden and directly smashed her towards her chest. The disciples that Fu Kalen had taken in were all incredibly beautiful girls, and he was probably a lecher. With the Wind Maiden's beauty, he would probably be able to make him hesitate for a moment, and this moment would be enough for him to escape. Chapter 2201. Originally, with the martial arts of the Shui Great Sect, even if they were no match for a great grandmaster, they would not be defeated so miserably. However, Song Qingshu had once fought with him in Xiangyang, and again after coming to the Western Xia. At the same time, he had also watched him fight several times, so he was very familiar with the characteristics of his martial arts. In addition, he did not know the true bright sword technique, and could only imitate it through the artistic conception of the man in the painting, ignoring the rules of space to a certain extent. This was why the Shui Great Sect had been defeated so quickly and so miserably. "Master!" The fire servant and the forest servant shouted mournfully, their voices filled with disbelief and deep resentment. They had planned to temporarily stall Fu Kalen for a while, giving the Shui Great Sect a chance to catch their breath, and then he would make a comeback. Who would have thought that he would directly choose to escape, and even sacrifice them to buy time for himself? The Wind Maiden opened her mouth, but no sound came out. Her entire mind had gone blank. She had never thought that her master, who had always been invincible in her heart, would be so despicable in times of danger. Song Qingshu's sword did not stop. He vaguely remembered that the one who had kidnapped Huang Rong in Xianyang City seemed to be this forest servant. In their despair, the forest servant and the fire servant had completely unleashed everything they had learned in their lives, even reaching a level of 120%. Unfortunately, even the Shui Great Sect was no match for him. So how could they stop him? Moreover, they had been kicked here by the Shui Great Sect and had lost their center of gravity. In the eyes of a true expert, they were full of openings. A flash of cold light flashed past, and the two of them fell heavily to the ground. Their eyes were wide open, their faces filled with disbelief. The Wind Maiden had seen all of this, and her entire body was cold. She knew that no matter how much she struggled, she would not be able to stop her opponent, so she simply stopped brandishing her weapon. In her mind, the time she had spent growing up with Lin Huashan and the others, as well as the scenes of the Shui Great Sect carefully teaching her in the past. She had never thought that all of this would end up like this, and tears involuntarily flowed from the corner of her eyes. Song Qingshu recognized this mysterious courtesan whom he had met on the way to the Western Xia. He hesitated for a moment, but did not kill her. He simply grabbed her lightly and threw her to the side. However, after this interruption, the Shui Great Sect had already disappeared without a trace. Song Qingshu did not care because this time, he was not their target. Although it took a long time to describe what had just happened, everything had happened in an instant. Su Yiwu and Fang Yiwu had not expected the Watermoon Great Sect to escape just like that. The Japanese are indeed unreliable. The two of them were just short of cursing his 18 generations of ancestors. Seeing that Fu Kalen was looking at them, Su Yiwu and Fang Yiwu both took a step back. A hint of anger and shame flashed through Su Yiwu's heart. How many years had it been since he had been like this? For as long as he could remember, the Mongolians were already invincible. He was the only one who forced the enemy into a corner step by step. There was no reason for him to be forced to retreat by the enemy. Thinking of this, he wanted to take a step forward, but that person walked towards him step by step. Every step he took seemed to exude an invincible aura, causing him to be unable to summon the courage to take that step forward. Shoot! Shoot! Your Highness, please leave first. Fang Yiyu was known as the Little Devil Master, not only because he was the disciple of the Devil Master Pang Ban, but also because of his resourcefulness and calmness. In the chaos just now, he had already organized the archers and was ready to shoot. The Mongolians grew up on horseback and with bows and arrows. In the entire world, other than the Southern Song dynasty, which had invented the divine crossbow using some strange and obscene techniques, there was no other country that had bows and arrows that could compete with them. In the blink of an eye, a rain of arrows filled the sky and shot towards Fu Kalin, enveloping every inch of the ground around him and sealing off all his escape routes. Bai Xiao, the experts of a Jianghu, were usually no match for the regular army. Other than the fact that weapons were stabbing at them from all directions on the battlefield, rendering the dodging and maneuvering skills they had learned useless, it was also largely because of the bow and arrows. The simultaneous release of tens of thousands of arrows from the army on the battlefield was enough to turn any expert into a hedgehog. Now, the scale of the rain of arrows naturally could not compare to the thousands of soldiers on the battlefield, but the momentum was already frightening enough. Fang Yiyu methodically arranged for the group of archers to fire in 3 stages, so that the rain of arrows did not stop for even a moment and did not give the enemy any chance to breathe. Even so, Fang Yiyu did not dare to relax at all. The strength that the other party had displayed just now was too terrifying. He was not sure if the rain of arrows could stop the other party. I've just sent someone to inform the old man in the mountain. Why haven't they arrived yet? Even though Su Liuwu doubted Hua Shan's loyalty, Fang Yiyu still sent someone to inform the other party. With countless members of the Persian Ming dynasty serving as hostages, Hua Shan should be smart enough to weigh the pros and cons. At the current stage, he should not dare to rebel. Also, there were quite a number of elites who had gone with Hua Shan to carry out the mission this time, such as Red Beauty and White Hair. Also, after Ing Fei captured Madame Jeanne, he ran outside to sleep with other women, or else, if all the elites were around, no matter how great Fu Kalin's martial arts were, he would not have been able to kill them so easily. Song Qing-shu was not unfamiliar with the situation when he faced a black wave of arrows. He casually grabbed the corpses of 2 Mongolian warriors on the ground and used them as shields to block the arrows in front of him. Then, he moved closer to the archer camp. The Mongolian archers might be skilled in archery, but this time they brought heavy weapons like siege crossbows, and it was very difficult for them to pierce through a human body. When Song Qing-shu noticed that the meat shield in front of him was already full of arrows, he just grabbed another 2 shields and replaced them. There were quite a number of Mongolian warriors on the ground. Your Highness, hurry up and leave. When he saw that the other party was getting closer, even Fang Yiyu, who had always been calm, panicked. He quickly pushed Su Liuwu back. Thinking of leaving, Song Qing-shu had already gotten close enough. With one leap, he appeared among the group of archers. On the battlefield, if an enemy managed to get close to an archer, it would mean a one-sided massacre, much less when the enemy's martial arts were so high. One sword light shone through 19 provinces. Very soon, the archers either died or fled, and Fang Yiyu was the only one left standing in front of him as a shield. Fang Yiyu brought out the 38 halberds on his back. They were short halberds that were 3 feet and 8 inches long. They were said to have come from the bottom of North Sea, and they were said to have come from the heavens. They weighed 157 pounds, and they were the weapons Pang Ban used to sweep through the world when he made his debut. Master Fu, now that you've killed so many of our people, you've already vented your anger. Why don't we call it quits? We'll return the crown prince to you, and we'll definitely not hold a grudge for what happened today. Now that things had progressed to this point, the crown prince was useless in his hands. When Fang Yiyu thought about how all of this was because of the deal he made with the Dongying people, he gritted his teeth in hatred. How could he have expected that he would end up attracting such a god of death? Now that this matter was over, he had to get even with you and Chai Xiuxing. Didn't you say earlier that it was a misunderstanding? Didn't I say not to frame you without evidence? Song Qingshu laughed coldly. Why? Are you now admitting that you guys were the ones who massacred the Goryeo diplomatic mission? Fang Yu could tell that the other party's words were unkind, and he understood that there would be no good ending if he were to blindly compromise. Thus, he braced himself and said, Master Fu, now that things have come to this, there's no point in arguing who's right and who's wrong. There's never been any hatred between Mongolia and Goryeo. Today, Master has massacred our diplomatic mission here. Does the monarch of Goryeo know about this? If you continue to persist in going about things the wrong way, I'm afraid you'll bring disaster to your country. Chapter 2202. It's not a threat, it's just a matter of fact, Fang Yiyu continued. What's more, although Master's kung fu is high, he's not invincible. For example, our Emperor's tutor Basiba and my Master's evil Master Pangban. Master may not be able to defeat any one of them, not to mention our Khan's great mastery of kung fu. Even my Master is ashamed of his inferiority. The news about Temujin practicing demonic arts was all hearsay. Now that it was confirmed by an insider, Song Qingshu couldn't help but feel a shadow cast over his heart. Temujin's kung fu was even higher than Basiba and Pangban. What kind of existence was Temujin now? Seeing him fall into silence, Fang Yiyu couldn't help but be overjoyed. Master is a godlike figure. Of course you could distinguish between the pros and cons. When we return to our country, we will definitely put in a good word for you and Master in front of the Khan. What awaited him was a flash of cold light. Fang Yiyu tried to raise his halberd to block the opponent's weapon, but his reaction was a step too slow. Looking down at the long sword in his throat, his face was full of disbelief. Why? He couldn't understand why Fang Yiyu would choose to kill him despite knowing how powerful Mongolia was. Wasn't he afraid of bringing disaster to Goryeo? Since Mongolia is so strong, I naturally have to get rid of a few of your minions first. Even if Fu Kalen was here, he wouldn't believe Fang Yiyu's nonsense. Would he go back and pretend nothing had happened? Putting in a good word for Goryeo? That would be lying to a 3-year-old. It was more likely that they would go back and slander Temujin, then send troops to take revenge. Moreover, Song Qingshu wasn't Fu Kalen, so he didn't need to care about Goryeo's life or death. Although Fang Yiyu's kung fu was good, he was still a bit away from the realm of grandmasters. However, in Song Qingshu's eyes, he was more important than masters like Shueihua Headmaster. No matter how good Shueihua Headmaster was, he was still just a lackey. Fang Yiyu, on the other hand, was a real threat. Although killing him wouldn't be as exaggerated as cutting off an arm of Mongolia, it would still save him a lot of trouble in the future. My master will avenge me. Fang Yiyu felt that all the strength in his body was rapidly draining away, and his heart was filled with extreme fear. He had always been proud of his literary and military skills, and in the future, he would make great contributions in Mongolia and would definitely become a great figure whose name would go down in history. But he did not expect that he would die here quietly like this. He hated it so much, and he could not accept it. Demon Master Pangban? Sooner or later, I'll have to fight him. Song Qingshu sheathed his sword as a thick, killing intent flashed in his eyes. An arrow of blood spurted out, and Fang Yiyu fell heavily to the ground, no longer able to speak. At the side, Su Laiwu panicked. Seeing the experts under his command being killed one by one, and now even Fang Yiyu had died, he couldn't help but feel his limbs turn cold. Don't come over. Isn't your martial arts very high? Why don't you go up and fight with him? Madame Jeanne, who was standing beside him, smiled happily. She didn't expect this so-called assassin to be able to cause any trouble. She didn't expect him to be so skilled in martial arts. He had actually massacred the Mongolian side yard. Seeing her former enemies die one by one, she felt an indescribable sense of satisfaction. It should be known that she had tried to kill these people countless times over the years, but she had never succeeded. Shut up, be *tch, Su Laiwu scolded. At the same time, he felt some regret in his heart. Speaking of which, he also had the strength of a weak grandmaster. If he had joined forces with those people just now, instead of fighting them one by one like before, he might have been able to stop the opponent. But who knew that this person's martial arts were so terrifying? Is your martial arts very high? Thinking of his usual arrogant manner, Song Qingshu only felt a violent, killing, intense surge in his heart. He frowned slightly. What was wrong with him? Why did he feel like he couldn't control his emotions? Could it be that he had killed too many people just now? With my insignificant skills, I naturally don't dare to be compared to you, Master. I wonder what conditions the Master has in order to let me go. Even though Su Lai Wu was skilled in martial arts, at this moment, in the face of a life and death crisis, he found that his hands and feet were not listening to him. He couldn't use any of them at all. In the end, he was afraid that if he attacked, he would be like those people just now, directly taking the initiative to collide with the tip of the opponent's sword. If that happened, everything would really be over. Being Book City, he had many soldiers and generals under his command. He had conquered countless countries and was the most powerful person in the world. He had countless beautiful concubines at home and a great country that he hadn't had the time to enjoy. He didn't want to die here like this. As for directly surrendering, he didn't feel the slightest psychological burden. It should be known that when the Great Khan started out, he was also very weak. Temporary tolerance was not something unacceptable. Let you go? Song Qingshu's eyes flashed. It was as if there was a voice in his heart that kept urging him to kill him. Kill him, and then he wouldn't have to go back on his words. But Song Qingshu also knew very well that as one of the few surviving grandchildren of the Mongolian Great Khan, and as a prince who controlled nearly 1/5 of the Mongolian forces, if he died in Xinjiang Prefecture, it would inevitably bring endless military disaster to the Western Xia. Your martial arts are already so high. Why are you still afraid of this and that? Don't you feel aggrieved living like this? Song Qingshu only felt that there was an invisible little person in his ear constantly mocking and urging him. Shut up. Even with the mask covering his face, Song Qingshu's expression was still very ferocious. He directly kicked at Su Liu's head. If this kick landed, it would explode like a watermelon. Mu Wanqing, Li Qinglu, Yalu Nanxian, and the others suddenly appeared in his mind, as well as the common people of Xinjiang Prefecture that he usually saw. Song Qingshu suddenly changed the direction of his foot and directly stepped on Su Liu's knee. Ah! Su Liu clutched his legs and rolled on the ground. He struggled and wailed with all his might. He himself was an expert, and he knew that his legs had been completely shattered. Death can be avoided, but punishment cannot be forgiven. Song Qingshu left these words coldly and quickly turned to leave. He felt that his mind was extremely unstable at this moment. He was worried that if he stayed here, he would really not be able to control himself and kill Su Liu on impulse. Suddenly, he frowned and directly grabbed back. Madame Jeanne had already been sucked into his hand. At this moment, she was holding a dagger. It turned out that when she saw Su Liu lying on the ground without any strength to resist, she directly grabbed a weapon from the ground and stabbed it towards Su Liu's chest. I've already let him go, and you still want to kill him? Song Qingshu's eyes were bloodshot, and he looked extremely unkind. I have a deep hatred for him. Madame Jeanne felt her heart palpitate when he looked at her. Just now, she had seen how he had easily killed so many Mongolian experts as if there was no one there. He can't die, at least not now, Song Qingshu said coldly. He was worried that Madame Jeanne would cause trouble if she stayed here, so he directly grabbed her by the shoulder and left the Mongolian embassy. On the way, Song Qingshu felt the blood in his body churning violently. There was an indescribable killing intent in his body, as if the slaughter just now was far from enough. He was no stranger to this kind of situation. This was not the first time the inner demons of the Zan of Joy had appeared. At this moment, he needed to completely vent all the evil in his body. Otherwise, the consequences would be unimaginable. Chapter 2203. Noticing his aggressive gaze, Madame Jeanne's heart skipped a beat. Senior, did she just get out of the wolf's den and fall into the tiger's kiss? She had just witnessed how he single-handedly massacred the Mongolian ambassadors. She didn't think she could fight back. Song Qing-shu suddenly frowned and looked to the side. Soon, a group of people appeared from the corner of the street. The person in the lead was wearing a cloak, and his face couldn't be seen clearly. However, based on his unique attire and martial art style, it was obvious that he was the mountain elder Huashan. Senior, be careful. He is the Persian king of assassins. Many experts from the Western countries have died in his hands. Madame Jeanne hurriedly said to Song Qing-shu. She wanted to take this opportunity to improve their relationship. This way, the mountain elder might not kill her because of their relationship. Bright sword master Fu Kalin from Goryeo? Huashan didn't continue forward. He stopped 30 feet away. This distance was a safe distance for both sides. He had obviously received the news and knew who he was. If you want to fight, then fight. What's with all the nonsense? Song Qing-shu was very frustrated. The negative emotions caused by the massacre had not subsided. Right now, he just wanted to vent his anger. Fighting was obviously the best way to vent his anger. Compared to Shuei faction, the Mountain Elder wasn't easy to deal with. Shuei faction's martial arts were relatively simple. Observing from the side, one could always find some clues. On the other hand, the Mountain Elder's martial arts were complicated and strange. Every time he attacked, he would use different martial arts. This way, he wouldn't be able to target him like he did with Shuei faction. Unexpectedly, the Mountain Elder waved his hand. One of us is in the far east, and the other is in the far west. We are thousands of miles apart. We have never had any grudges or conflicts of interest. Why do we have to fight? Please. He then signaled his subordinates to make way for him. A trace of doubt flashed in Song Qing-shu's eyes. He wasn't sure if the Mountain Elder was up to something. Would he attack from the side when he left? However, the Mountain Elder had already moved to the side, leaving enough distance between them. It showed that he didn't have any other plans. Thinking back to everything that had happened, Song Qing-shu suddenly had a flash of inspiration. The old man in the mountain had not done his job for a few times, and now he had publicly let him go. It seemed like he was not willing to submit to the Mongolians just like that, and he had been undermining him in the dark. As the saying goes, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. Even though Song Qing-shu's mind was a little muddled at the moment, he still remembered this point. Song Qing-shu took Madame Jeanne's hand and left after giving her a deep look. Huashan, what do you mean by this? How can you let him go? A white-haired middle-aged man glared at the old man in the mountain. He was white-haired Lu Yaoji. Why do I need you to teach me how to do things? The old man replied coldly. We received a message from the little magician. Apparently, he has just come out from the guest house. We don't know how His Highness and the others are doing. How can we let them go just like that? His Highness has many masters under him, and he also has the Water Moon sect. Of course, he'll be fine. The old man did not even look at him and walked to the side. You, Huashan, are you planning to betray His Highness? Lu Yaoji was furious when she saw that he did not care at all. So what if I am? The old man was clearly far away, but when he finished speaking, he suddenly appeared in front of Lu Yaoji. She could even see the sinister smile at the corner of his mouth. White-haired Lu Yaoji was the protector of the Devil Palace, and she was also a devil who had run amok for decades. Her martial arts were naturally not weak. Lu Yaoji instantly took out a 4 feet and 4 inches long white jade flute from her sleeve and pointed it at the old man. The amazing thing about this flute was that when it was waved, it could produce flute notes of different heights and was unpredictable. It could cause the enemy to have the illusion of sound. The flute's holes could also use a unique technique to stimulate chi and hurt people without a trace. It was very powerful. Even if he encountered the top masters of the Central Plains, he would have no problem protecting himself with his amazing martial arts. However, he encountered Huashan, the king of assassins. Qin, the king of assassins, deliberately launched a sneak attack. How many people in the world could avoid it? Lu Yaoji screamed and clutched her chest. Her face was pale. The bone-piercing needle really lives up to its name. The old man stood with his hands behind his back. His opponent was already dead, so there was no need for him to make another move. As he made his move, the assassins under his command also made their moves. In an instant, they had slashed the throats of Liu Yaoji's subordinates. "Let my wife go." Liu Yaoji used her last breath to speak. Red Beauty Huajiu had left to carry out another mission and was not here. Otherwise, the old man would not have been able to defeat them so easily. Even though the two of them had been practicing the art of plucking all these years and had been doing their own thing, he did not know how many times Red Beauty Huajiu had cheated on him. But after decades of friendship, he still could not stop worrying. That slut? The old man laughed coldly and did not deny it. Liu Yaoji immediately understood what he was thinking and cursed, "Huashan, the great Khan, and the demon master will avenge us." After cursing, it was as if he had used up all his strength. Very quickly, he breathed his last. At that moment, Song Qingshu did not know that so many things had happened after he left. Of course, even if he knew, he would not have cared. His whole body was restless at that moment. The night breeze carried the faint scent of roses. Song Qingshu turned to look at the woman beside him. The moon was bright in the sky, and the breeze was gentle. Her snow-white skin and red lips were incomparably beautiful. Actually, objectively speaking, Madame Zhen's appearance was not that stunning. Compared to Qin Yuanyuan and Xiao Longnu, she was still a little lacking. But her voluptuous and mature figure made one's breath quicken. Her smooth and straight legs were even more alluring. Especially her light blue eyes that were as beautiful as the sea. Her unique and exotic charm was extremely alluring. Madame Zhen was brought to her room by him. Looking at the bed not far away, she could not help but feel a little flustered. She hurriedly said, "Thank you, Senior, for saving my life. I still have some matters to attend to at home. I will visit Senior tomorrow." After saying that, she turned around to leave, but she was pulled into the arms of the man. "No!" Madame Zhen cried out in alarm, but she did not know that such a cry would only add fuel to the fire. "It's me." Song Qingshu took off his mask and returned to his original appearance. "Young master." Madame Zhen's struggling hands and feet suddenly calmed down. The fear and uneasiness in her heart was instantly replaced by joy. Song Qingshu's hand had already slid down her collar. Actually, he could go back to Mu Wanqing and Li Qinglu, but he felt pity for them and did not want to torment them in such an unstable state. In comparison, he did not feel any psychological pressure in this aspect with Madame Zhen. She was beautiful, mature, and had expressed her willingness to sleep with him several times. Chapter 2204. Song Qingshu was very satisfied. "Benefactor, when the Mongols invaded Samarkand, my family and fiancé all died in the chaos of war. I have always wanted to avenge them, but I have never had the strength to do so. Today, among the Mongol experts that Benefactor killed, there was a murderer from back then. Now that you have avenged them, I am very happy." Madame Zhen whispered in his ear. The hairpin on her head had already been taken off, and her hair was loosened. Her light blonde hair fell to her waist, making her skin look even more beautiful and fair. Song Qingshu was stunned. "You're already married?" Madame Zhen smiled charmingly. "Young master, don't worry. We are only engaged, not consummated. Young master will be my first man. You have kept yourself chaste for him all these years. It seems that the two of you have a very deep relationship." Song Qingshu asked in a muffled voice. His mouth was not so free at the moment. "We grew up together and can be counted as childhood sweethearts. Our relationship has always been very good. If it weren't for those Mongol demons, we would have lived a happy life." Madame Zhen's eyes were gentle, as if she was reminiscing about the good times of the past. Madame Zhen's eyes were watery, and she smiled foolishly. "But I don't see young master's movement stopping." "Umph." Song Qingshu pinched her lightly to express the dissatisfaction in his heart. Madame Zhen's body was burning hot. She tightly hugged the man on top of her. "Young master, sometimes I feel that you are very similar to Temujin." "What?" Song Qingshu was surprised. "Temujin loves to conquer his enemies and take their wives and daughters by force." Madame Zhen's light blue eyes were full of charm. When I mentioned fiancé just now, your body's reaction couldn't have fooled me. Seeing that the man was about to get angry, Madame Jeanne gently hugged him. But it's not the same. Temujin only knows how to use force, but I did it willingly. You have done so much for our Horazm, and my family in heaven will surely agree that I should serve you well. My fiancé has always been a man who knows how to repay kindness. If he knew that you had avenged him, he would definitely not object to me repaying you in this way. She was already recognized as the most beautiful woman in Kharezm when she was a young girl. Now, after so many years, she had matured in both body and experience. At the same time, she was also a famous wise woman in Kharezm. A mature and smart woman knew how to best please a man. For the whole night, she naturally and gently told him about her past with her fiancé. She told him about their love that had lasted for a long time and talked about the times when they were young. She completely satisfied the man's desire to conquer and sense of accomplishment. In the beginning, she was only using this method for her own benefit, but as she talked, she unconsciously became aroused. She could also feel the strange stimulation of both her body and mind. Song Qing-shu could naturally guess what she was thinking, but he did not care. He only enjoyed her gentle flattery. At the same time, he also knew that Madame Jeanne's love for him was not real. It was more out of gratitude, mixed with a bit of natural worship for a strong man. But what did it matter? Android nowadays, he was already very tired. He had so many women around him, and he did not want to casually develop his true feelings. Madame Jeanne's attitude was the best. They were both mature men and women, and they each took what they needed. After that, there was no need to worry about responsibility. The next day, when Song Qing-shu woke up, he gently drew circles on his chest with his fingers. Seeing that he had woken up, Madame Jeanne's pale face blushed. She smiled shyly for the first time. "You are really strong." His words were like lightning. Madame Jeanne very gently opened her body to accept him. She smiled happily. She was very satisfied with her body's attraction to him. At the same time, she found that she seemed to be more intoxicated by his scent. The happiness she had obtained last night was more than all the happiness she had in the first half of her life combined. Even if we really got married, even if I loved my husband deeply, I would not be able to reject this man. If he beckoned with his finger, I would most likely sneak over to meet him. Thinking about how her body would turn soft when his finger touched her body, Madame Jeanne's face became even redder. After a long time, with Madame Jeanne's help, Song Qing-shu put on his clothes. At this moment, he felt refreshed without any of the negative emotions caused by the blood yesterday. "I have something to do, so I will leave first. You rest well," Song Qing-shu said as he tidied up his sleeves. Last night, the Mongolian ambassador group had such a big incident that the entire Xingqing prefecture was probably in an uproar. Okay. Madame Jeanne also felt like her body was about to fall apart. At this moment, she did not have the slightest bit of strength. She just wanted to have a good sleep. When Song Qing-shu walked to the door, he suddenly thought of something and said, "Oh right, don't go back to the Corazimo store. First, you don't want the Mongolians to find you again. Second, you don't want people to think of what happened last night. Yes, I will stay here from now on. I will wait for your call at any time." Madame Jeanne smiled sweetly. Song Qing-shu thought for a while and said, "You can stay by my side from now on. I have a lot of things on my hands, and I need someone like you to help me." Dongfang Mushua wanted to take control of the Qing kingdom. Zhao Min had to go back to Mongolia. And as for Huang Rong, it was not convenient for her to accompany him at all times due to her identity. Therefore, Madame Jeanne was a very suitable candidate. Okay, Madame Jeanne could not hide the joy on her face. Although the two of them had skin contact last night, she did not think that this was enough, even if she was the most beautiful woman in Corazimo. Her benefactor was like an immortal. What kind of woman could he not get? Therefore, she was very smart and did not make any requests. She also did not ask for any promises or titles from him. She was very clear that men sometimes did not want to be bound by responsibilities. Now that he had taken the initiative to invite her, wouldn't it be easier for her to stay by his side? That way, it It would be easier for her to help the Corazimo in the future. Madame Jeanne was not like other women who had thoughts of competing for favor or love. She had the hatred of her country and her people on her shoulders. How could she be in the mood for small feelings between men and women? Chapter 2205. After Song Qingshu left, he went straight to the Western Xia Imperial Palace. Compared to the usual bustle in Xingqing Prefecture, there were many warriors from Class 1 Hall patrolling the streets. Obviously, the incident last night had put the whole city on lockdown. After entering the palace, he found Mu Wanqing, Li Qinglu, and Yelu Nanxian discussing something anxiously. Only Li Qiushui was leisurely sitting on the couch, munching on an apple. She didn't mind the large portion of her snow-white skin was exposed. Song Qingshu wasn't interested in her. He looked away and asked, "What are you talking about?" Song Qingshu, "Big brother Qingshu." The girls were surprised to see him. Before they could greet him, Yelu Nanxian hurriedly asked, "Did you know that Master Brightsword of Goryeo, Fu Kalin, massacred the Mongolian embassy last night?" Song Qingshu smiled embarrassedly. "Of course I know. That Master Brightsword is me. He didn't need to hide it from them. Are you okay?" Song Qingshu spread his hands. "Who in the world can hurt me? Of course I'm okay. I told you it was him last night. You just had to worry about it." Li Qiushui threw the apple aside. "Even I don't have the confidence to win against Shuei's sect. How can a mere Goryeo kill the entire Mongolian embassy? It's good that it's you. We were worried that another grandmaster came to the city. It's hard to deal with him." Mu Wanqing patted her chest and let out a long sigh of relief. Why did he pretend to be Fu Kalin? Li Qinglu rolled her eyes. Did he want to take advantage of the Fu sisters? TSK, 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 a master and a beautiful disciple. Just thinking about it makes me excited. Song Qingshu was speechless. He reached out and poked her forehead. What are you thinking about all day long in that little head of yours? Seeing that his granddaughter was at a disadvantage, Li Qiushui was instantly indignant. TSK, you men are all hypocrites. I've seen the Fu sisters. They are indeed beautiful. If you don't have any feelings for them, why would you care so much about them? I heard about what happened from Qinglu. Song Qingshu was embarrassed. Changing the topic, he asked Yelu Nanxian, "What is the reaction of the Mongolian ambassadors?" He was not a bloodthirsty demon. Yesterday, he had mainly gotten rid of the experts under Su Liu's command. There were still many Mongolian warriors alive. Seeing his embarrassed expression, Yelu Nanxian pursed her lips and smiled. "I just came back from the Mongolian embassy not long ago. Of course, they strongly criticized our Western Xia's lack of protection and also blamed us for the lack of security here, which allowed criminals to easily enter and commit murder." Mu Wanqing snorted. Even if it wasn't Big Brother Song, but a normal expert, a normal city defense wouldn't be able to defend against him. What's more, the Mongolians chased our people away the moment they entered the city. They are fully responsible for the security of their embassy, and now they have the nerve to blame us. How shameless. Li Qinglu ran behind her and gently rubbed her shoulder. "Big Sister Mu, don't mind them. The Mongolians suffered such a thing lst night. It's normal for them to complain." Yelu Nanxian said worriedly, "We killed so many of their people last night. The other experts are fine, but the little devil Master Fang Yiyu is an important person in Mongolia. His teacher is the devil Master Pangban. Also, Su Liu's legs were broken. The Mongolians have never suffered such a defeat. I'm worried that they will take revenge." "So be it. Those Mongolians are so arrogant that I've long since disliked them. I support you, Brother Song." Li Qinglu ran to Song Qingshu's side and hugged his arm, acting coquettishly. Feeling the young and springy body of the girl, Song Qingshu's heart skipped a beat, but he didn't dare to show it in front of everyone. He quickly replied, "That's why I disguise myself as Fu Kalin. If the Mongolians want revenge, they will go to Korea. Korea is far away in the northeast, so it won't be easy for the Mongolians to take revenge." Yelu Nanxian was happy. "That's good. I will tell my subordinates not to provoke Su Liu and the others, lest they take their anger out on us." Song Qingshu suddenly exclaimed. The Mongolian envoys suffered such a heavy loss. I thought they would return to their country. Why don't they have the slightest intention of leaving? Yalu Nanxian was also puzzled. We are also wondering. Song Qingshu said, Su Liu's legs are broken. How can he participate in the joust for a spouse? When the time comes, he will lose to some nameless pawns on the stage. I don't think he can afford to lose face. Li Qinglu giggled. Maybe it's because he knows that I am as beautiful as a goddess, so he can't bear to give up on me. Girl, you really don't know shame. Mu Wanqing and Yalu Nanxian couldn't help but laugh, and very quickly, they started to quarrel. Song Qingshu fell in a deep thought. What was Su Liu doing here? Suddenly, a eunuch came to report. After hearing it, Yalu Nanxian came back with a strange expression. People from Hui Division came to visit the Fu sisters. Hui Division? Song Qingshu was surprised. Korea and the Hui Division were separated in the east and west. After coming to Western Xia, the Fu sisters had never interacted with the Hui Division, so why did they come to visit? The people who came are Hua Qingtong and Hua Ai, Chun Jialuo, and Yang Shao of the Ming Dynasty. Yalu Nanxian continued. I remember now. Li Qiushui nodded. I think I saw this Miss Hua at Mount Beating Drum before. She is indeed quite beautiful, and I heard that she is the fiancée of the Ming Dynasty's leader, Zhang Wuji. Little Song, I heard that you don't get along with Zhang. Why don't you take this opportunity to win his fiancée over? Song Qingshu was speechless. This Li Qiushui was really a person who wished for the world to be in chaos, and his head was full of such evil thoughts. Also, why did the name Little Song sound so strange? Li Qinglu, Mu Wanqing, and Yalu Nanxian looked at him suspiciously at the same time, as if they felt that this situation was very likely to happen. At this time, Hua Qingtong, who was being led by a palace made into the palace, looked excited. She did not expect that the arrogant Mongolians would suffer such a heavy blow overnight. These years, the Mongolians had put too much pressure on them, and many of their clansmen were very pessimistic about the future. Now that she saw that the Mongolians would also lose and die, how could she not be happy? Once she knew that the person who attacked last night was Master Brightsword of Korea, she immediately set off to visit the Fu sisters and form a good relationship with Korea. It would be even better if she could see Fu Kalen. At this time, her brother, Hua Ai, was looking around in the palace and could not help but mutter to himself, I wonder if I will have the chance to see that Princess Yinchuan. I have always heard people say that she is as beautiful as a fairy. Hua Qingtong secretly frowned, thinking that her brother really did not know what was important. At this time, he only knew how to care about women. Besides, no matter how beautiful that Princess Yinchuan was, could she be more beautiful than her younger sister, Kazli? Seeing her brother like this, she felt even more regretful that she was not a man. Which man could do more things and lead his clansmen to victory more easily? As if sensing her gloominess, Yang Shao, who was at the side, spoke up to dispel the heavy atmosphere. That Master Fu's martial arts are a little too high. The Mongolians have many experts under them, and their defenses are very strict. Even if our leader came personally, I'm afraid he would not be able to achieve such a result. Chun Jialuo also nodded repeatedly. Indeed, Fu Kalen's martial arts are like a ghost or a god. I did not expect a mere Korea to have such an expert. Hua Qingtong could not help but look at Yang Shao. Emissary Yang, where exactly did Zhang Wuji go? Why haven't we heard any news of him for the past half a year? Yang Shao replied in a deep voice. The leader must have something important to deal with. After he is done, he will come back to see you. Now, it was announced that Zhang Wuji was in seclusion, but this kind of nonsense would definitely not be able to fool an intelligent woman like Hua Qingtong. Chapter 2206. I hope so, Hua Qingtong said calmly. It was not because she missed the other party, but because she was worried about the future of the alliance between the Wood Table Lun tribe and the Ming Dynasty. After all, the Mongolian Western expedition had ended, and they were preparing to attack the east. The Hui tribe was the first to bear the brunt of the attack, and the pressure they were under could be imagined. The Fu sisters were arranged to stay in a side courtyard in the palace. They had not expected the people from the Wood Table Luan tribe to visit them. But now that they were alone and needed to borrow the strength of other factions to deal with the Mongolians, they naturally would not reject the olive branch they had thrown at them. Fu Junyi and Fu Junyu were extremely beautiful, but because of their heavy injuries, they looked pale and weak. This did not affect their beauty at all, and instead made them look even more pitiful. When Huai came in and saw them, his eyes were fixed on them. Even Shan Jelua, who had always thought of himself as a gentleman, could not help but take a few more glances. Hua Qingtong saw all of this, and her face heated up. She somewhat regretted bringing her brother here, but her brother was the true successor of the Wood Table Luan tribe. If they were to form an alliance with Goryeo, it would not be as serious without him. Worried that she would make the other party unhappy, Hua Qingtong hurriedly showed concern for the sisters' injuries. Both sides exchanged friendly and polite greetings, and when they felt that the time was right, they spoke of their intentions. Alliance. The sisters looked at each other and saw the confusion in each other's eyes. Right now, only the two of us are left in the Goryeo envoy. Even the crown prince's whereabouts are unknown. Why do you want to form an alliance with us? They were not blinded by the sudden pie in the sky. You two ladies still don't know? Hua Qingtong was very surprised. Last night, your master killed his way into the Mongolian embassy. She briefly described what had happened last night. Master? The sisters were arranged to recuperate in the palace and naturally lost their channels of communication. Yilu Nanxian and the others did not tell them what had happened last night. Master Fu's swordsmanship is divine. Even the experts under Su Liu were not his match. It is truly admirable, Yang Xiao praised sincerely. Hearing their description, Fu Junyu opened her mouth to say something, but her sister secretly pulled on her sleeve, so she didn't say anything in the end. Fu Junyi did not immediately agree to Hua Qingtong's proposal to form an alliance. After all, with their status, they could not make the decision for Korea on such a major issue. In addition, Korea's biggest enemy had always been Japan. She did not want to completely offend the strongest country on the mainland, Mongolia, because of an alliance with the Wooden Table Luan tribe. Hua Qingtong was not in a hurry. After all he needed was a gesture. As for the details of the alliance, he could send a messenger to follow up on it in the future. After Hua Qingtong and the others left, Song Qingshu appeared in front of the Fu sisters. At this time, he had already restored his appearance of Jia Baoyu. Seeing his arrival, Fu Junyi was very surprised. Baoyu. Fu Junyi, on the other hand, was much more reserved. You're here. Song Qingshu nodded. How are your injuries? The medicine you gave me is very useful, and it's not a fatal injury. I'll be fine after a few days of rest. Fu Junyi replied with a smile. By the way, did something happen with the Mongolian ambassadors last night? Fu Junyi, who had always been calm, did not dare to easily believe what Hua Qingtong and the others said. She needed to seek confirmation from Song Qingshu. Yes, your master single-handedly challenged such a huge Mongolian embassy. Song Qingshu thought to himself, I did it, how could I not know? Fu Junyi gently covered her chest and sat down. The injuries on her body still made her a little weak. I'm afraid that person last night was not our master. Song Qingshu was shocked. Why? He knew that he could not deceive the sisters, but they did not even see him. Wasn't it too exaggerated to think that it was not him? First floor, master is in Goryeo. He won't appear here. Fu Junyi shook her head. Song Qingshu said curiously, maybe he heard that something happened here, so he hurried over. Fu Junyu, who was at the side, explained, you might not know, but the most important reason why Master has stayed in Goryeo all these years and hasn't left is to keep the Chui family in check. Chui has already grasped half of the power in Goryeo, so it's easy for him to change the dynasty. It's because of Master's checks and balances that he doesn't dare to make a move. If Master leaves, Goryeo will probably change within a few days. So unless Goryeo is on the brink of life and death, Master will never leave Goryeo. Not to mention that only the ambassadors were killed and the crown prince went missing. Even if we and the crown prince were killed, Master would not come here. Song Qing-shu suddenly realized that he was not from Korea after all, so he did not know that they had such a complicated internal relationship. That person is not your master. You better keep it to yourself, Song Qing-shu said after thinking for a while. What? Fu Jinyu looked confused. First of all, that person's martial arts is very strong. Even so many Mongolians were killed by him. Since he pretended to be Master Fu, he must have his reasons. If you come out and expose him, I'm afraid it will be disadvantageous. Song Qing-shu considered his words. What's more, that person helped Korea get revenge. Maybe you will need his help to find the whereabouts of your crown prince. Fu Jinyi nodded in agreement. You're right. That person's motive is unknown, and his martial arts are very high. Let's see what happens first. Song Qing-shu finally heaved a sigh of relief. If these two people did not come out of question, Fu Kalin's identity would be impeccable. As for letting Korea take the blame, he would have to pay a certain price for avenging them and finding the crown prince for them. At this moment, a palace maid suddenly came to report that Galdan had brought people to see them. Galdan? The Fu sisters looked at each other. We have no relationship with him. Why is he here? Song Qing-shu smiled. I'm afraid he's also here to find your alliance. No wonder he could survive in such a tense situation in the western region. He really didn't let go of any opportunity. As for Galdan secretly finding other people to form an alliance, Song Qing-shu did not take it to heart. If it was anyone else, they would have done the same. It's the same as the wooden table Lewin department. Fu Jinyi had no reason to refuse and quickly invited him in. Why are you here? Suddenly, a disgusted voice sounded. Song Qing-shu looked up and saw the young master of Peerless City staring at him with an unfriendly expression. I'm just friends with them. I'm just here to visit them. As for Du Gumming's attitude, Song Qing-shu did not take it to heart. Would a lion care about an ant's attitude? I'll let you escape today. Tomorrow, I won't show any mercy. Du Gumming snorted coldly. It turned out that because the Mongolian, Korean, and Khwarezm ambassadors met with trouble overnight, the martial arts competition for espouse was delayed by a day. Du Gumming, don't be like this. It's too rude. A pleasant female voice rang out. Her voice was filled with dissatisfaction. Her face was covered with a veil, and she wore a long dress. Her figure was graceful and alluring. If it wasn't dual cultivation princess Gu Zixian, who else could it be? Originally, she had always lived in seclusion and wouldn't come out for something like this. However, she missed her lover and decided to come out with Galdan to try her luck. She didn't think that she would actually meet them. Was this fate? Thinking about this, Gu Zixian's beautiful eyes were filled with joy. Chapter 2207. All right, let's not disturb the two ladies' cultivation. They become a laughing stock. Galdan couldn't stand it any longer and interrupted the two. Du Gumming didn't dare to offend him, so he could only swallow his anger and glare at Song Qing-shu hatefully. Then he followed Galdan and quieted down. Gu Zixian quietly stuck out her tongue at Song Qing-shu. It wasn't good to say anything in front of everyone. Galdan was about to say something, but couldn't help but look at Song Qing-shu. Fu Jinyi replied, He's our good friend and one of us. Great Khan, please speak your mind. Du Gumming cursed in his heart. This gigolo really knew how to flirt. Were these women blind? Why do they all like this kind of trash? Gu Zixian also curiously sized up the two sisters in front of her. In terms of appearance and figure, she was confident that she wouldn't lose to any one of them. However, when the two sisters stood together, the addition was too great. This was something she couldn't compare to. The Southern Song dynasty and Mongolia also had enmity. Young Master Jia, there's no harm in listening. Seeing that the sisters didn't avoid Song Qing-shu, Galdan laughed and didn't insist. After a series of pleasantries, he also stated his intentions. As expected, he planned to form an alliance with Goryeo. With Hua Qingtong's previous experience, the Fu sisters were more at ease. They didn't immediately agree, but they didn't rush to refuse either. They only said that everything needed to be decided by the monarch. Galdan also didn't insist. He expressed enough goodwill to Goryeo to lay a solid foundation for the alliance in the future. After a few more words of greeting, he had his subordinates put down the gifts and took his leave. When Dugaming passed by Song Qing-shu, he stopped for a moment and said coldly, "Brat, wait for me tomorrow." Song Qing-shu shrugged and didn't comment. Dugaming snorted and left in a huff. Gu Zixian purposely fell behind and said to him apologetically, "I'm sorry, I've caused you trouble." Song Qing-shu smiled and said, "How can you be blamed for this? Beautiful women always meant trouble. While enjoying beautiful women, one had to bear the trouble that came along with it." Gu Zixian hesitated for a moment, then quickly said, "Don't worry, I'll think of a way for tomorrow's competition." Naturally, she wasn't worried that Song Qing-shu wouldn't be able to defeat Dugaming. Instead, she was clear that since he had appeared as someone else, he naturally didn't want to reveal his identity. If Dugaming forced him to reveal his original martial arts because of her, then she would be guilty of a heinous crime. Song Qing-shu was stunned. Before he could answer, she had already caught up with her companion in small steps, leaving only a wisp of fragrance in the air. "He's already gone. Why are you still looking?" Fu Jinyu didn't know why, but she felt a little irritated. It was as if a toy that had always belonged to her suddenly didn't belong to her alone. Fu Jinyu, on the other hand, was much calmer. She looked thoughtfully at Gu Zixian's receding figure. "Young master seems to be very familiar with the princess of the double cultivator mansion." Song Qing-shu laughed awkwardly. "I'm just SOSO. I'm a naturally amiable person." Fu Jinyu snorted. "If you're really amiable, then why is the young master of Peerless City so unfriendly towards you? It's most likely because you stole his woman. That's why he's angry at you." Song Qing-shu had no choice but to explain. "The princess of the double cultivator mansion has nothing to do with him. Naturally, she can't be considered his woman." Fu Jinyu still wanted to say more. Suddenly, Yilu Nancian rushed over with a group of people. "Ladies, your crown prince has been found." "Really?" The Fu sisters stood up in unison. They were pleasantly surprised. "Qian reads a book, yes." The people from Class 1 Hall found the unconscious crown prince in an old temple in the city. "Aside from some minor injuries and shock, he's fine," Yilu Nancian replied. Song Qing-shu fell in a deep thought. The Mongolians probably released the Goryeo crown prince because of what happened last night. They wanted to prevent Fu Kalen from going crazy and coming to them again. However, the Mongolians couldn't show weakness in public. Thus, they quietly released the crown prince and let the people from Class 1 Hall find him. This way, they could appease Fu Kalen and not leave behind any evidence. The Fu sisters immediately requested to visit the crown prince. Yilu Nancian didn't stop them. The group of people went to see the crown prince of Goryeo. He was in a state of panic. Seeing the Fu sisters, he hurriedly shouted, "Hurry and send me back to Goryeo. I don't want to stay here anymore." "Yes, we'll bring the crown prince back as soon as possible." Fu Jinyu sighed. The crown prince must have been scared out of his wits these past few days. Song Qing-shu said in a low voice, "You're both injured. If you leave now and you run into some bad people, you won't be able to protect the crown prince." The Fu sisters frowned. They knew that he was speaking the truth. However, the crown prince had already given the order. They couldn't refuse. Yilu Nancian could see their dilemma. She walked up to the crown prince and said, "Crown prince, the situation is chaotic now. Those bad people might ambush you along the way. It's better for you to rest and recover first. At the same time, wait for your kingdom to send people to receive you. This way, you can ensure the crown prince's safety." The crown prince was overjoyed. "That makes sense. Thank you for reminding me." After settling the crown prince and the Fu sisters, Song Qing-shu left the palace. He couldn't disappear for a long time with Jia Baoyu's identity. When he returned to the Southern Song guest house, he saw Shui Baochai pacing back and forth anxiously in front of the door. She seemed to be waiting for something. Seeing Song Qing-shu, Shui Baochai was pleasantly surprised. However, her face immediately darkened. She snorted and turned to leave. "Sister Bao, what's wrong?" Song Qing-shu called out to her. However, she didn't have the slightest intention of staying. She quickly disappeared around the corner of the corridor. Do you really not know, or are you pretending not to know? The yellow-robed woman suddenly appeared beside him. What do you mean? Song Qing-shu was startled. Last night, I saved you. In the end, you didn't come back. On top of that, the incident with the Mongolian ambassadors happened. The entire Xingqing prefecture is in chaos. Baochai was worried about your safety. She sent people out to look for you and waited for you the whole night. However, you still have the lingering scent of a woman's powder on you. You must have had a good time last night. The yellow-robed woman couldn't help but sneer as she spoke. She seemed to be speaking up for Xue Baochai. After she finished speaking, she couldn't be bothered with him anymore and turned to leave. Song Qing-shu sighed inwardly. This Xue Baochai was deeply in love with Jia Baoyu. Unfortunately, he wasn't the real Jia Baoyu. At this time, a person jumped out from the side. It was Xue Pan. He put his arm around Song Qing-shu's shoulder and asked in a low voice, "Brother, where did you have a good time last night?" For a moment, Song Qing-shu didn't know how to answer. He really did have a good time last night. Seeing his silence, Xue Pan thought that he was going to deny it. He immediately became anxious. Don't try to trick me. The scent of the powder on your body can't escape my nose. Damn, there are several women's fragrances on you at the same time. Can your body take it? It's okay, it's okay. Song Qing-shu smiled in embarrassment. Chapter 2208. Song Qing-shu nodded, that's good. Objectively speaking, although Xue Pan was a bit of a playboy, he treated Jia Baoyu quite well. Then you should have brought me along. You eat alone every time. Aren't you being too disloyal? Xue Pan said gloomily. Song Qing-shu was also speechless. How could he bring her along for this kind of thing? It seemed like it was time to invite her to the brothel in the city so that she wouldn't pester him and talk about it. All right, I'll bring you along next time. Xue Pan was overjoyed. That's my good brother. Did you know that Baochai has been very strict with us recently? With so many murders happening in the city, we haven't had many opportunities to go out. It's suffocating me to death. At this moment, Xue Baochai's voice came from the courtyard. Come over, I have something to say. Xue Baochai was in charge of protecting them, and her father was the Prime Minister Xue Ji. She was also very beautiful, so she had long won the support of everyone and was vaguely the leader of the envoy group. Hearing her call, everyone quickly came out of their rooms and surrounded her. 3 major cases happened yesterday. First, the Goryeo diplomatic group was massacred. Next, the Khwarezm diplomatic group was destroyed by a mysterious person. Finally, even the powerful Mongolian diplomatic group was almost annihilated. Xingqing Prefecture is in chaos now, so the diplomatic group is under martial law. Everyone is not allowed to go out. If there's any special reason, report to me first. As Xue Baochai spoke, she glanced at Song Qing-shu. Clearly, he was the most disorganized and undisciplined person. Hearing that they were not allowed to go out, Xue Pan and the others wailed. Song Qing-shu didn't mind. With his martial arts, he could sneak out without being discovered. The Mongolian diplomatic group was annihilated? How is that possible? The Liu brothers asked in shock. Apart from those who were well-informed and knew the whole story, most people were still in the dark about what had happened last night. I heard that the bright sword master of Goryeo, Fu Kalin, came personally. Xue Baochai gave them a summary of the information. The Mongolians have many experts. Even a Mongolian diplomatic group was annihilated. Yes, Zalandin from Khorasan participated in the contest for a spouse before and easily defeated 3 people in the group. His martial arts seems to be not weak. I didn't expect him to be killed by a mysterious man. The Fu sisters from Korea are also very good at martial arts, but they were also wiped out. A group of people began to discuss what happened last night. They were really frightened. How could women and fun be more important than their lives? Xue Baochai took the opportunity to pull the girl in yellow and asked, Sister Yang, how high do you think Fu Kalin's kung fu is? The lady in yellow had a worried look on her face. I've seen the Shueiwei Grandmaster in action. Her martial arts are so high that it's rare to find someone like her in this world. The Mongolian ambassadors have someone like her in charge, and with the help of the other masters, they still couldn't stop Fu Kalin. Thinking about it, I'm afraid that his martial arts are not inferior to my master's. Not inferior to Mr. Yin Shan? Shui Baochai was shocked. One had to know that Huang Chong was a universally recognized great grandmaster. While they were discussing, Shui Pan ran over to LV Shisheng and said, "Although this isn't good news for the rest of us, it's like great luck for you." LV Shisheng frowned. "What do you mean? Didn't you have to face Su Liuwu after the group was formed? Originally, you had no chance at all, but now that he's heavily injured, you won without even fighting. If this isn't great luck, then what is?" Shui Pan's tone was filled with jealousy and envy. His next opponent wouldn't be so easy to deal with. Normally, when the LV brothers heard Shui Pan's taunts, they would most likely start arguing with him. However, when they heard this news, their eyes lit up and they looked at each other. The two brothers thought of the same idea. "Bookroom, report the young master of the Jin Kingdom has arrived." A guard hurriedly ran in to report. "What is he doing here?" Shui Baochai and the lady in yellow frowned. The people of Song naturally didn't have a good impression of the Jin people. "I think he said he wants to see young Master Jia," the guard replied. Song Qing-shu was worried that the two girls would refuse, so he hurriedly ran out. "I'll be right back." Seeing him rush out eagerly, Shui Baochai stamped her feet, feeling very annoyed. The yellow-robed woman suddenly said, "Miss Shui, don't you feel that Jia Baoyu is a little different from before?" Shui Baochai's heart skipped a beat. "What's different?" The lady in yellow thought for a moment, then said, "Although I've heard that he's very popular with women, most of them are the daughters of the Grandview Garden who don't take a step outside. However, this time, when he came to Xinjiang Prefecture, all the women he met were extraordinary and knowledgeable women, but they all treated him differently. His luck with women is a bit too good." Shui Baochai bit her lip. In fact, she had also noticed that Jia Baoyu was acting strangely. She thought about the subordinates she had sent to Hunan to seek confirmation from Song Ci, and thought to herself, "I'll know the truth soon." Song Qing-shu ran to the gate and found Wanyan Zhongjia leisurely fanning herself. She had red lips and white teeth, and was exceptionally beautiful. Now that she was dressed as a man, she looked incomparably handsome, attracting the attention of countless passing women. Seeing him come out, Wanyan Zhongjia said with a faint smile, "I thought that Miss Shui didn't want to let you out." Song Qing-shu's face heated up. "Zhongjia, why are you looking for me so early in the morning?" Wanyan Zhongjia looked around to make sure it was safe, then moved closer to him and whispered, "Were you the one who massacred the Mongolian ambassadors last night?" Song Qing-shu nodded. "I still can't hide it from you." Wanyan Zhongjia was well aware of his martial arts and knew how to disguise himself, so it wasn't difficult for him to guess Fu Kalin's true identity. "Brother Qing-shu, you're amazing." Wanyan Zhongjia was so excited that she jumped into his arms. Feeling the softness of the girl's body, Song Qing-shu's heart skipped a beat. He looked back at the gate with a guilty conscience. Seeing that no one was paying attention to them, he heaved a sigh of relief and said, "You're a big girl now, so you should pay attention to your image." As he spoke, he put her down. Wanyan Zhongjia pouted and said, "I don't act like this in front of other people. I only act like this to you. Besides, the Mongolians have killed many of our Jin soldiers over the years. I'm happy to know that you taught them a lesson. Oh, there's one more thing I need to tell you. After Madame Zhen's injuries were almost healed, she went back to pretend to be Zalanden. In the end, something happened to the Khwarezm ambassadors last night. By the time we got there, it was already too late. Madame Zhen was missing." Wanyan Zhongjia lowered her head like a child who had done something wrong. It was rare to see her like this. Song Qing-shu smiled and stroked her hair, saying, "Don't blame yourself. This has nothing to do with you. Moreover, Madame Zhen is safe and sound. I've already rescued her." "No wonder you caused such a ruckus at the Mongolian embassy last night," Wanyan Zhongjia said quietly. "Is she really that important to you? What are you thinking?" Song Qing-shu said snappily, "The Mongolians have always been arrogant and despotic. I want to teach them a lesson for a long time. Madame Zhen's incident was the last straw that broke the camel's back." "That's good." Hearing this, the girl's worry instantly turned into joy. Chapter 2209. At the encampment Wang Baobao was at, he was extremely shocked when he heard this news. After confirming the casualties on Su Liuwu's side, and learning that even Su Liuwu's leg had been broken, he couldn't help but laugh 3 times towards the sky, and then brought over a jar of wine to drink to his heart's content. After all, that person could destroy Su Liuwu, so he could also kill him. Even though he had always been confident, he also knew his own limits. Even though he was not afraid of Su Liuwu and the others, he could not defeat them. Both sides were evenly matched. Therefore, he immediately sent out his subordinates to search for Fu Kalen's whereabouts, lest he suddenly ambush them. Of course, he also wanted to win over this grandmaster. Although the Ryong Palace had many experts under their command, none of them were truly grandmasters. Therefore, they had always been wary of Temujin, the imperial tutor Ba Siba, and the evil master Pangban. If they could successfully win over Fu Kalen, then the Ryong Palace would have more and more bargaining chips in the future. Prince Zongzan also laughed out loud in the Tubo Kingdom's guest house. I was worried that Su Yiwu would become my greatest enemy in the betrothal contest. I didn't expect him to have his leg broken. The heavens are really on my side. Ha ha ha. The elegant and quiet princess of Jinsheng frowned slightly. Zongzan, you must not be careless. You must know that there are many heroes in the world. Even without Su Yiwu, there are still others. That's right. This penniless monk took a look at the General Assembly. There are still many experts that cannot be underestimated. For example, Xiaofeng, the king of the south courtyard of Liao, Shuzhu of the Shaolin Temple, and even Zhuang Juxian of the Beggar Sect. Their martial arts were far beyond the reach of his prince. However, he knew that Zongzan was arrogant and conceited, so it was useless to tell him about it. Instead, it would easily provoke Zongzan, so he did not say it directly. In any case, the martial arts test was only one aspect of the betrothal contest. There was still the literary test after that. Compared to the betrothal contest, he was more concerned about Fu Kalen from last night. He had seen Mongolian masters fight before. Even though he was confident that he was not weaker than any of them, Jiumaji also knew that he would not be able to defeat so many Mongolian masters by himself. Could it be that Korea's Master Bright Sword was much stronger than him? Jiumaji had always been crazy about martial arts. Whenever he thought that his martial arts were not as good as others, he would feel quite unhappy. Mother and the far-sighted king are right. I will definitely treat him carefully in the future. Since both of them had said this, Zongzan could not argue back. He could only bow while his mouth did not match his heart. Lowering his head, he happened to see the tip of Princess Jinsheng's foot slightly exposed under her skirt. He thought that it was really small and exquisite. If he could hold it in his hand and play with it, he didn't know what kind of pleasure it would bring. Prince Zongzan licked his lips and raised his head to look at the young Empress Dowager in front of him. She was demure and elegant, beautiful and dignified, and her every move was very elegant. Her skin was so white and tender that it seemed that water could be squeezed out with a light pinch. She was completely different from the dark skin of ordinary Tubo women, giving him a strange attraction. No wonder Zampa dotes on her so much these years, but Zampu's body is about to fail. Once Ben Wang inherits Zampu's position, he must take this woman into his room and dote on her. Thinking of his fat self, Prince Zongzan suddenly felt that he couldn't wait for Zampu to die. Seeming to notice something, Princess Jinsheng uncomfortably retracted the 3-inch golden lotus under her skirt. I'm a little tired. I'll go back to my room to rest. She was not used to Prince Zongzan's extremely aggressive eyes, but she had no choice. Having been in Tubo for so many years, she more or less knew their customs. Like many nomadic tribes, because women and population were scarce resources after the father died, the son could inherit all the concubines of the father except the biological mother. After the elder brother died, the younger brother could even inherit the sister-in-law. When she first learned about this custom that went against the moral principles, the princess of the Southern Song dynasty, who came from a place where etiquette prevailed, was very shocked. She felt that she could not stand all of this, but what could a weak woman like her do? The only thing she could do now was to pray that Zampu could live a few more years. Unfortunately, Zampu was old and close to the end of his life. What effect could her prayers have? In the early years, Prince Zongzan still had some scruples, but in the past 2 years, his eyes had become more and more unbridled, and Wuji was afraid. Thinking of her miserable fate in the future, Princess Jinsheng felt sad from the bottom of her heart, but she could do nothing about it. She could only hide in the quilt and cry secretly in the dead of night. At this time, in the guest house of Si Siluo, on the other side of the city, after receiving the report of Prince Zongzan's joy, Si Siluo sneered. Mud can't help a wall. It's not even worth mentioning. Beside him, the national master Li Lizuan said with a smile, Great Khan, the more useless this Zongzan is, the more advantageous it is for us. If he is wise and powerful, how can we have the chance to counterattack Tubo? That's true. Si Siluo was overjoyed. Last night, Mongolia suffered a great disaster, which proves that they are not as invincible as imagined. After I take over Tubo, I can integrate the resources of Tubo and Qinghai, and it will be enough to compete with Mongolia. Li Lizuan said, Last night, Goryeo, Khwarezmi, and Mongolian goose houses were attacked one after another. Now Xinjiang Prefecture can be said to be in a mess. It's a good opportunity to fish in troubled waters. The plan against Zongzan and Jinsheng Princess can also be implemented. Si Siluo also smiled strangely. Everything depends on the national master. Not everyone was happy about what happened to the Mongolian ambassadors last night. In the guest house of Dongying, Hidekitsa was panicking. He paced back and forth in the room like an ant on a hot pan. Oh no, even so many Mongolian masters were killed. Won't we be even more powerless to fight against Fu Kalen? He knew that the reason why Mongolia attacked the Goryeo ambassadors was because of the deal he made. In the end, he was the main culprit. Moreover, the murderer of those murders in Goryeo was a Dongying man. How could Fu Kalen let him go? That Fu Kalen may not be invincible in the world. If he comes, I want to have a good fight with him. Miyamoto Musashi's dispirited eyes were shining with a strange light. Temple Street. Nonsense, Shuei sect is the third strongest master in Dongying, second only to the two sword saints. Can you defeat him? Fu Kalen defeated him easily. Hidekitsa snorted coldly. Shuei sect is the third strongest master in Dongying? I don't admit it. Miyamoto Musashi asked the young man who looked like a rich man beside him. Do you admit it? He is indeed the third strongest in the hearts of most Dongying people. The first half of Sasaki Kojuro's words made Miyamoto Musashi raise his eyebrows. But then he said, But he hasn't fought with me. I don't think he can defeat me. Miyamoto Musashi clapped his hands. That's it. We have two masters who are not inferior to Shuei sect. Fu Kalen won't be good even if he comes. However, although he was confident, he was not arrogant. Although he didn't think that Shuei sect's martial arts were better than his, he also didn't think that his martial arts were far better than Shuei sect's. Since Fu Kalen could easily defeat Shuei sect, then Fu Kalen's martial arts were most likely higher than his. So he didn't hesitate to think of joining forces with Sasaki Kojiro. Sasaki Kojiro nodded. He obviously thought the same. Although he had a personal grudge with Miyamoto Musashi, it was more important to resist the enemy in the face of a strong enemy. In the residence of the Qin Kingdom's diplomatic corps, Nalan Rongruo was warning the girl in front of her, Dark Cloud Pearl, you should also know that our respective families have lost power in the country, so this time the Emperor didn't assign any masters to us, so that Goryeo could bully us. But so many masters of Goryeo were slaughtered. Now the city is very chaotic. We should try not to go out on ordinary days, lest we get into trouble. Oh, the girl murmured absent-mindedly, but her mind was full of the situation when her big brother saved her. After they parted a few days ago, they hadn't seen each other again. She didn't know where to find him. In the Dali Hotel, Zhu Danshan was also giving the same warning. Prince, now the city is very chaotic. You'd better be careful. It's better not to go out on the street. Although Duan Yu's 6-pulse magic sword was powerful, his martial arts foundation was too poor. In addition, the sword chi was sometimes not effective. If he met a real master, he would be easily controlled. Oh, Duan Yu replied weakly, leaning on the table. At this time, his mind was full of the fairy sister's frown and smile. By the way, Prince, you'd better visit Miss Mu when you have time. Zhu Danshan continued. Wan Qing? Duan Yu was surprised. She is now the Empress of Xixia. I'm afraid it's not appropriate for me to visit her. Zhu Danshan replied. Not to mention that you were once friends. Even if Miss Mu and Heir Shitzi are siblings, Heir Shitzi's visit is still reasonable. Presumably, Miss Mu will not refuse. After entering the palace, see if there is an opportunity to see Princess Yinchuan. If you can win her favor in advance, that would be the best. I will have to ask Miss Mu to help me in this matter. Hearing his utilitarian words, Duan Yu immediately felt disgusted. When he was about to refuse, he suddenly thought of something and asked in surprise, Does that fairy sister also live in the palace? Zhu Danshan frowned and wanted to comfort him. But when he saw the joy on his face, he didn't say anything. As the old princess of Xixia, she naturally lives in the palace. That's good. Let's go to the palace together to see Wan Qing. Duan Yu seemed to be on steroids. At this time, Yalu Qi of Liao was asking Xiao Feng about Fu Kalen's martial arts last night. They had fought with the old man in the mountain and knew the strength of the masters under the command of the Mongolian army. They didn't expect that they would be so easily defeated by Fu Kalen. They were the most shocked. The martial arts of the Shuai Great Master is very high. I'm afraid it will be difficult for me to defeat him in the arena. Of course, I should be able to defeat him in a life-and-death fight, but it will definitely not be as easy as Fu Kalen. Is there really such a terrible martial arts master in Goryeo? Xiao Feng was lost in thought. Yalu Qi said, I have inquired about it. The old man in the mountain and the others were not in the Mongolian army last night. Xiao Feng breathed a sigh of relief. That's good. Otherwise, if Fu Kalen could massacre the Mongolian army under the joint efforts of the old man and the Shuai Great Master, I'm afraid it is not an exaggeration to call him the world's #1. On the other side of the Shaolin Temple, Xuzhu also fell into the same doubt. Is Fu Kalen's martial arts really that high? He believed that if he were in Shaolin's shoes, he would never be able to do all that. In the entire Shaolin Temple, perhaps only the nameless holy monk had this ability. Xuzhu, you don't have to worry too much. We have no grudges with Goryeo. No matter how high Fu Kalen's martial arts is, it doesn't matter to us. On the contrary, Suliwa's legs are broken. This time, you have one less strong opponent in this marriage contest, Xianji of the Commandment Yard said. Amaba, Fang Sheng, who was next to him, called out the name of Buddha. The Mongolia embassy has been hit hard, and the prince has also been injured. I'm afraid the world will be in chaos, and I don't know how many people will lose their homes. Moreover, I feel that it is a little inappropriate for Xuzhu to return to secular life and participate in a marriage contest. Kong Wan, who was the leader, said, Junior brother, we have no choice but to do this for the people of the world. As the saying goes, if I don't go to hell, who will? Chapter 22:10. The various powers in Xingqing Prefecture were in an uproar. Just like that, another day passed. The postponed competition was finally held again. Because Song Qing-shu was the last to fight on the first day, it was his turn to fight first. Because he didn't return home for a few nights, Xue Baochai was extremely dissatisfied with him and ignored him completely. When they reached the arena, Song Qing-shu finally found a chance to talk to her. Sister Bao, why didn't you give me special treatment this time and teach me some techniques to fight later? Xue Baochai rolled her eyes. Remember to admit defeat later, otherwise you'll be beaten to death. Song Qing-shu's face was gloomy. Is there anyone who cheers like you? Xue Baochai hesitated for a moment, but in the end, she still couldn't bear it. She patiently explained, the previous opponents in the group matches weren't strong, so it was useful for me to target their martial arts with special training. This young master of Peerless City, I've specially seen him fight in the group matches. His martial arts are all very exquisite and mysterious, far beyond what you can handle. No amount of special training will help, so it's best for you to admit defeat immediately. He admitted defeat in front of so many people without even fighting. He really can't afford a lose face like this. Song Qingshu also had a headache. Although Du Gaming wasn't a top-notch expert, he was well-versed in martial arts. In front of so many people, it wouldn't be easy for Song Qingshu to defeat him without exposing his martial arts. Are you really stupid, or are you pretending to be? Shui Baochai suddenly got angry. What's wrong? Seeing that she got angry for no reason, Song Qingshu was confused. Shui Baochai glared at him hatefully and replied, "You've been flirting with his fiancée all this time. Which man can withstand such provocation?" Looking at Du Gaming's stance, it's obvious that he's going to kill you later. Because this is the arena. As long as he tries to shirk responsibility, we won't be able to hold him responsible. If you don't admit defeat immediately, he might just kill you. You won't even be able to keep your life, so why would you care about embarrassing yourself? Song Qingshu smiled awkwardly. The dual cultivation princess isn't his fiancée. I can't be bothered with you. Shui Baochai immediately turned around and left. She sat on her seat with her mouth puffed up. She was obviously sulking. Did you make Miss Shui angry again? A teasing voice came from his side. Song Qingshu turned around and discovered that the yellow-robed woman was currently dressed as a man. Her lips were red and her teeth were white. She was truly incomparably beautiful. If it wasn't for the inside story of this betrothal contest, if it was any other princess, they might not be able to resist secretly falling in love with her. Are you here to make fun of me too? Song Qingshu leaned over and asked, "Do you have any special techniques that you can teach me so that I can deal with Du Gaming later?" He still hadn't thought of how to deal with Du Gaming. He couldn't just throw money at him, right? Du Gaming was the future lord of a city, and he wasn't like those poor bastards from the Yellow River Gang. No, the yellow-robed woman flatly refused. Even if you have such a short time, you won't be able to learn it. You'd better listen to Bao Chai and admit defeat. Song Qingshu suddenly asked, "If I can pass, does your previous agreement still count?" Agreement? The yellow-robed woman was stunned at first, then she reacted. "You're really daring. Even if we were to meet, we'd have to wait until the quarterfinals. Not to mention whether you can advance or not. I'm not even sure if you can make it that far. What if I'm lucky?" Song Qingshu said with a smile. "If you can really make it to me, then I'll give way to you." The yellow-robed woman didn't mind. After all, she was a woman dressed as a man, so she couldn't really marry the princess. Reaching that far was already enough for the imperial court. Huasho Chinese, that's good. Song Qingshu heaved a sigh of relief. He already had a headache facing Du Gaming, not to mention an expert like the yellow-robed woman. It was impossible to defeat her without exposing his martial arts. Noticing his expression, the yellow-robed woman couldn't help but be amused. "Do you really think you can advance all the way?" She couldn't be bothered with him after she finished speaking. She ran to Shui Baochai's side and whispered to her. Noticing that the two women were staring at him from time to time, Song Qingshu knew that they were probably laughing at him now. He smiled faintly and didn't care at all. The first match, the young master of Peerless City versus young Master Jia from the Great Song. Please come on stage. There was already a referee on the stage calling for the two of them. Song Qingshu instantly attracted the attention of the entire audience. Unlike the group stage, the people in the elimination round could all become one's future opponent. Therefore, most of the participants wouldn't miss the opportunity to observe their opponents in every match. They wanted to know the characteristics and weaknesses of their opponents in advance so that they could target them in the future. However, seeing that it was him, everyone quickly looked away. The news of him using money to bribe his opponent to advance had already spread. His reputation as a shameless person had already spread, and almost everyone looked down on him. Although most people's attention was on Du Gaming, there were also a few people who were curious about what Song Qingshu was going to do this time. Was he going to bribe his opponent with money? Song Qingshu was also under a lot of pressure at this moment. His mind was quickly filtering through all kinds of methods he could use. Actually, it wasn't difficult to deal with Du Gaming, but there were still so many matches after that. The people after that would be even more difficult to deal with. If he used some of his methods in advance, what would he do in the future? His expression was solemn, and his footsteps were slow. In the eyes of the others, they only thought that he was afraid. Immediately, the crowd booed. On the side of the Jin Kingdom, Wanyan Zhongjie snorted with some dissatisfaction. They're all stupid people. Beside him, Ouyang Feng couldn't help but laugh. They can't be blamed. Even I, who know his identity, am curious about how he will deal with it. He must have a way. Wanyan Zhongjie also couldn't think of a way, but he had full confidence in him. Just as he was about to enter the arena, a beautiful figure suddenly flashed in the corner. Her face was covered with a light veil, and her figure was graceful. Who else could it be other than the dual cultivation princess? Don't worry, I've already arranged everything. Gu Zixian couldn't help but feel a little embarrassed to speak to him in front of so many people. She naturally knew about Song Qingshu's martial arts, but at the same time, she also knew that he didn't want to reveal it. Thus, she considerately thought of a way for him. What way? Song Qingshu was stunned. He didn't expect such a turn of events. Gu Zixian was about to reply when Du Guming's angry voice sounded from the arena. Surname Jia, are you going to come up or not? If you continue to be so wishy-washy, I'll take it that you've forfeited. At this moment, Du Guming's eyes were about to spit fire. He never thought that in front of so many people, his fiancée would run over and whisper to someone else. Feeling the gazes of the others, he seemed to be full of mockery and contempt. Originally, he was still a little hesitant. At first, he only wanted to teach him a lesson, but now, he was already filled with killing intent. Xian'er, come back quickly. In the distance, the dual cultivation princess frowned. Her daughter was really too careless. In front of so many people, she didn't give Peerless Sword City any face. Gu Zixian had no choice but to give Song Qingshu an apologetic look. She hurriedly lifted the hem of her skirt and ran back. Chapter 22:11. After going up on stage, the official quickly explained the things to take note of during the competition, especially reminding both parties to be careful. If there were any unnecessary injuries or deaths, the other party would be disqualified. Of course, I will be merciful, Du Guming said in front of the official. Du Guming said this in front of the official. After the official retreated to the side, he approached Song Qingshu and said, "Rascal, are you going to die today?" Feeling his opponent's murderous intent, Song Qingshu frowned. "You plan to kill me? If you do that, you will also be disqualified." "So what if I'm disqualified?" Du Guming's face was a little sinister. He had participated in this competition to join in on the fun and protect Galdan. He didn't really plan on marrying the princess. Although the princess was said to be as beautiful as a fairy, no one had seen her with their own eyes. No matter how beautiful she was, she couldn't compare to Gu Zixian from the dual cultivation house. He wouldn't risk losing his fiancée to pursue some princess. Song Qingshu had a headache. The other party wanted to kill him, which made it even more difficult to deal with. "Are you guys still going to fight?" Seeing that the two of them didn't fight, but instead gathered together and whispered, the audience was instantly dissatisfied. "That's right, if you're not going to fight, come down quickly. The people behind are still waiting." Hearing the crowd's excitement, the judge on the side also felt a lot of pressure. He wiped the sweat off his forehead. "The two of you can start." "Okay." A sinister smile flashed across Du Guming's face. As soon as he said the word "good," he kicked the other party's chest. Seeing the other party retreat with a scream, he felt a sense of satisfaction in his heart. "Who asked you to flirt with the princess all day long? Today, I won't let this matter rest so easily. I'll make him embarrass himself in front of everyone and let Gu Zixian see just how much of a coward this man is." With Song Qingshu's martial arts, Du Guming naturally wouldn't be able to kick him. Before his feet even touched Song Qingshu's chest, Song Qingshu had already fallen backwards. In everyone's eyes, it looked like he had been kicked. This Du Guming is too ruthless. Seeing this scene, Shui Baochai couldn't help but sit up straight. "Didn't you say you wouldn't care about him?" the yellow-robed woman teased. "I told him to admit defeat as soon as he got on the stage, but he didn't listen." Shui Baochai's slender fingers gripped the teacup tightly, and her complexion became even paler. What kind of man would be willing to give up so easily in front of the person he loves? The yellow-robed woman sighed. She looked at the two people on the stage, not knowing what to think for a moment. Sweetheart, muttering these words, Shue Baochai looked at the man on the stage with a trace of gentleness in her eyes. After sending Jia Baoyu flying with a kick, Du Gaming wasn't in a hurry to continue attacking. Instead, he looked at Jia Baoyu like a cat catching a mouse. Young Master Jia, what do you think of my Peerless City's leg technique? Peerless City's leg techniques are naturally brilliant. It's just that young City Lord's skills aren't that great. Otherwise, I would have been kicked out of the arena. Song Qing-shu said as he patted the non-existent dust off his chest. Hearing this, Shue Baochai, who was below the stage, immediately became anxious. Why did you purposely provoke him? Isn't that even more dangerous? From his tone, it seems like that kick didn't really hurt him. You don't have to worry too much. The yellow-robed woman comforted her. Shue Baochai could be said to be confused due to her concern. She nervously watched the situation on stage. As expected, Du Guming was furious. Stinking brat, I showed mercy just now, but you don't know what's good for you. Since that's the case, don't blame me for being impolite. He was originally prepared to slowly humiliate his opponent in front of Gu Zixian. He was afraid that he would be crippled, so he wasn't really going to show mercy. Your Peerless City's martial arts are exquisite, but my Great Song's martial arts aren't bad either. Song Qing-shu said as he waved his fists and legs to attack his opponent. He was using the moves that Shue Baochai had taught him last time. He had already decided that later on, he would secretly use some underhanded methods to defeat his opponent in the midst of the chaos. He hoped that no one would notice any flaws. 29 GG. These moves are used to deal with the people from the Yellow River Gang. How can you use them against Du Gaming? Shue Baochai stood up in a panic. These moves were very targeted, but at the same time, they were very limited. If they were used against others, it would only lead to death. Seeing that his moves were full of flaws, Du Gaming laughed coldly in his heart. What an idiot. How could Xian fall for such a guy with a golden exterior but a rotten interior? However, when he thought about how Gu Zixian fell for such trash and not him, Du Gaming became even more furious. I will let everyone see him kneel and beg for mercy, then pretend to kill him. Du Gaming had already made up his mind. He planned to break his opponent's arm first. Just as he was about to make his move, he suddenly felt a sharp pain in his lower abdomen. His expression changed on the spot. What's going on? Du Gaming wasn't the only one who was confused. Everyone else had the same question. Jia Baoyu's random attacks were full of flaws, but in the end, Du Gaming didn't even dodge and was directly punched in the face. Song Qing-shu was also very confused. Just now, he wanted to play some tricks. Who knew that his opponent would be so cooperative and just stand there like an idiot? Feeling a burning sensation on his face, Du Gaming was furious. Brat, I'm going to kill you. Just as he took a step forward, a loud pu-pu sound was heard. Song Qing-shu was stunned. The sound of farting? People who practiced martial arts had their airways tightly shut. Normally, they wouldn't fart. Even if they wanted to fart, they wouldn't do it in a public place like this. Even the referee at the side covered his nose. Even though he didn't smell the stench, it was a subconscious reaction. Ha ha ha. Everyone on the drill ground burst into laughter after they figured out what was going on. Du Gaming's face turned green and red. At this moment, his stomach was in turmoil. It could be said that he was extremely uncomfortable. Could it be that I ate something bad? Du Gaming cursed the Western Xia food in his heart. At the side, Song Qing-shu couldn't help but laugh. Young master, why don't you go down and solve your personal problem first? Can I apply to stop the competition? Du Gaming turned his head with difficulty and looked at the referee at the side. His eyes seemed to be full of pleading. The referee also had a strange look on his face. There are a lot of matches today. Therefore, for the sake of fairness, it is stipulated that anyone who leaves the arena during the match will lose. Please forgive me, young master. Initially, he was still looking in the direction of the nobles in the palace. It wasn't that he couldn't change the situation. However, he heard the crown princess's voice through telepathy. Naturally, he followed the order. What? Ming cursed in his heart. The Western Xia was really incompatible with him. At this moment, Song Qingshu had vaguely guessed what was going on. He secretly glanced at Gu Zixian in the distance. The beautiful princess noticed his gaze. She blushed and lowered her head shyly. This method was really not very ladylike. Song Qingshu suddenly felt a headache. Why did he end up like Pan Jinlian and Shimin Qing? Ming turned around and saw him flirting with his fiancée. He almost exploded in anger. It won't be too late for me to go to the toilet after I kill you. Chapter 22:12. Previously, Song Qingshu was indeed having a headache on how to deal with him without leaving a trace. However, now that he knew his condition, it was naturally much easier. He didn't need to do anything. All he needed to do was to dodge. Time was on his side. Ming's attacks were all killing moves. Previously, he had the mentality of a cat catching a mouse. However, he couldn't afford to waste time now. However, for some reason, his opponent, who he thought was defenseless, suddenly became like a mudfish. Although he was flustered every time, he was always able to dodge his attacks by a hair's breadth. Ming didn't think too much about it. He just assumed that his stomach wasn't feeling well, which was why he didn't dare to exert force. After 2 consecutive attacks, Ming remained rooted to the ground, not daring to move an inch. The sharp-eyed people at the side of the arena could see that his face was twitching. It was obvious that he was trying his best to resist the feeling in his body. Feeling his stomach churning, Ming knew that he couldn't hold it in any longer. However, if he were to run to the toilet now, wouldn't he be letting the brat in front of him take advantage of him? Let's try one last move. Even though he was already on the verge of losing it, Ming wasn't willing to give up just like that. He decided to try one last move to knock his opponent down first. In order to ensure that nothing went wrong, he immediately held a long sword in his hand and displayed Peerless City's Holy Spirit sword technique. He sealed off all of his opponent's escape routes. With his opponent's martial arts skills, he would definitely die under this move. Baoyu quickly admit defeat. Xue Baochai, who was below the arena, was instantly anxious. She could already tell that Ming's sword contained killing intent and could really kill his opponent. The yellow-shirted lady at the side secretly sighed and secretly held a teacup in her hand. She planned to save him if the situation went south. After all, she couldn't really let him die on the arena. However, Jia Baoyu, on the arena, seemed to be scared out of her wits. She stood dumbfounded on the spot and couldn't move an inch. Looking at Ming's ferocious expression, everyone had the same thought. Is someone going to die in the first round of the competition? However, other than a few close friends and relatives of both sides, most of the people just wanted to watch the show. They couldn't wait for the bloodier stage to be the better. Kill him! Kill him! Kill her! On the stage, there was a sudden change. Ming rushed over aggressively, but halfway through, the wooden planks on the ground seemed to have decayed as he stepped on them. A hole appeared out of nowhere, causing Ming to fall flat on his face. The arena was newly built by the Western Xia, so it was naturally impossible to use rotten wood. When Song Qingshu was dodging, he deliberately used his internal force to shatter the wooden plank under his feet, just to trick him at the critical moment. "You bastard, I'm going to kill you." Ming couldn't care less about his image now. He crawled up and was about to chop someone. However, as soon as he stood up, he was stunned. He felt a warm current gushing out. He lowered his head in disbelief and saw a yellow liquid flowing out of his pants, accompanied by a foul smell. The crowd quieted down. They were all martial arts masters, so they naturally had sharp eyes and could see what had happened. Ming screamed. At this moment, he couldn't care less about chasing after Song Qingshu anymore. He lifted his sleeves to cover his face and ran for his life to the toilet below the stage. First round, Jia Baoyu wins. The official at the side had a strange expression. He didn't expect the first round to turn into a farce. Fisk, quickly look at the book. Booing sounds could be heard in the drill ground. It was obvious that everyone wasn't satisfied with this round. However, it was still quite interesting to witness a rich young master urinating on the stage. Only then did Song Qing-shu cup his hands in the air. He said to the people around him with a proud face, "My air-splitting palm is amazing, right? Just now, I hit a top-notch master through the air, so please pray that you don't have to face me in the future." Shui Baochai, who was just nervous below the stage, now sat back in her seat with a face full of shame. She was afraid that someone would know that she knew him. This person is really shameless. The yellow-robed woman by the side placed her teacup back on her seat. She also had a strange expression on her face. At the very least, he's very lucky. However, the others were not so polite. Quite a number of people already looked down on him for advancing to the next round just because he paid his opponent to win the first round. They had long since wanted to see a real elite teach him a lesson, but they didn't expect that this elite would actually fail miserably. With that lousy martial arts of yours, you think you can beat your opponent up with just one palm strike? You're really shameless. The people in the area instantly started cursing him. In fact, quite a number of people even threw the things in their hands at the stage. The official from Class 1 Hall on the stage originally wanted these people to smash the shameless bastard in front of him to death, but unfortunately for him, he had to take action to block the items that were thrown at him. "Young master, please hurry up and get off the stage. We're about to start the next round." The official from Class 1 Hall suppressed the urge to beat him up and forced a smile. "Why does your smile look even uglier than when you cry?" Song Qing-shu mocked him before he puffed out his chest and got off the stage. He was like a proud rooster, and he perfectly portrayed the expression of a good-for-nothing rich kid who was so pleased with himself. In the eyes of those who did not know about the situation, he naturally looked like he was filled with hatred, but those who knew about the situation could not help but smile. Wanyan Zhongjie could not help but say, "Big Brother Song is really interesting." By the side, Ouyang Feng could not help but laugh as well. "This boy's acting skills are really good. I'm starting to realize that he has the talent to be a bad guy." Wanyan Zhongjie could not help but glare at him. "Don't talk nonsense. Our Big Brother Song is the best person in the world." If anyone else had said such words to the mighty Western Poison, Ouyang Feng would have long since been angered and killed them. However, when he looked at the girl with bright eyes, Ouyang Feng could not get angry. Yes. He's the best. I don't know what kind of bewitching potion that boy gave you." At that moment, Song Qing-shu returned to the diplomat group's area and said to Shui Baochai with slight smugness, "Big Sister Bao, you didn't expect that I would be able to advance, did you? You're just lucky." Shui Baochai's face turned slightly red. Clearly, she was thinking about the situation on the stage. Song Qing-shu chuckled. "Indeed, I was lucky because I relied on shit." Shui Baochai and the yellow-robed woman both frowned and hid to the side in disgust. Clearly, they were disgusted by him. Only Shui Pan came over. "Brother, not bad. I wonder if I'll be as lucky as you later." Song Qing-shu smiled. "With Brother Shui's martial arts, it won't be a problem for you." After the usual flattery, he looked at the Liu brothers with a strange expression. Usually, the two of them would not let go of a chance to ridicule him. What was going on today? The two of them had solemn expressions, as if they were thinking about something important. At this moment, the second match had already begun. The Jin Kingdom's Wanyan Zhongjie was up against an expert from the 8 Trigram School. After Wanyan Zhongjie went up the stage, he fanned the air in front of his nose with a look of disgust. "This place is so smelly. Aren't you guys going to change?" The Class 1 Hall referee was about to cry. How could they change the stage in such a short amount of time? He could only smile apologetically and say, "We've already cleaned it up. Why do I feel like there's a stench?" Wanyan Zhongjie said to his opponent while covering his nose, "Hurry up and start. Once you're done, we'll leave." Chapter 22:13. On the Southern Song side, many people cheered for the 8 Trigram School's experts. The Jin and Song were enemies, so it was expected that they would support their opponents. Shui Baochai could not help but ask the yellow-robed woman, "Sister Yang, what do you think?" The yellow-robed woman shook her head. Although the 8 Trigram School is somewhat famous in the martial arts world, it is still a third-rate school. There are no outstanding experts in the school. On the other hand, the young princess is a famous teacher and seems to have been taught by Western poison Ouyang. How can a mere 8-trigram school deal with her? They had interacted with her a few times and naturally knew that she was a woman disguised as a man. Shui Pan said, "In my opinion, you don't have to worry. Even if the Jean princess is skilled in martial arts, we could just find someone to expose her identity and disqualify her." Shui Baochai subconsciously glanced at the yellow-robed woman and hurriedly glared at her brother. "Don't make trouble." Now all the forces have maintained a tacit understanding. Some women dress up as men, and some send their men to clear the obstacles. No one has any objections. If you speak carelessly, it is very likely that both sides will suffer. TSK, so be it then. Shui Pan rolled his eyes and hugged Song Qing-shu. "Even if you don't want to tell us, we still have Baoyu. That Jin Kingdom's little princess has taken a liking to our Baoyu. At worst, we can just ask him to use his charm. Wouldn't it be easy?" Song Qing-shu was shocked. "There's nothing between us. Don't speak carelessly." Shui Baochai was in a rage, and he did not want to add fuel to the fire. "You run into other people's carriages all day, and you say you're innocent? Who would believe that?" Shui Pan mumbled. However, everyone around him was an expert and could hear him clearly. Shui Baochai snorted, and her expression turned ugly. Suddenly, a burst of cheers sounded. They looked over and saw that the winner had been decided. The 8-trigram school's expert had been kicked off the stage. If I can be kicked by that 3-inch golden lotus, I'd be willing to lose. Shui Pan stared at the slender and elegant figure on the stage. Song Qing-shu was speechless. "Don't you like the dual cultivation princess? Why are you interested in the Jean princess?" "This is called the universal love of men, understand?" Shui Pan chuckled. "Not to mention that we'll be bringing glory to our country if we can get the little princess." Overhearing their conversation, the yellow-robed girl whispered to Shui Baochai, "I finally understand why people in Lin and call your brother local bully. He was born with one less cord." Shui Baochai also had an expression that said she didn't know him. By then, the third match had already begun. It was between the crown prince of Dali, Duan Yu, and the young sect leader of the Five Tigers sect. The blade of 5 tigers breaking the gate is indeed ferocious. Shui Baochai noticed that Duan Yu was constantly dodging his opponent's attacks. That Prince Duan's wave-like subtle steps is really amazing. No matter how powerful his opponent's saber art is, not even a corner of his clothes was touched. The yellow-robed girl observed Duan Yu's steps without blinking. Many people in the arena had the same thought. They wanted to see if they could observe the knack of this footwork. Song Qing-shu shook his head as he watched. Duan Yu had amazing skills, but unfortunately, his martial arts foundation was too weak. He was forced into such a state by an opponent with a solid martial arts foundation. No matter how amazing the wave-like subtle steps was, it had its limits. As the saying went, if one defended for too long, one would lose. If he was hit by his opponent's saber, he would probably be seriously injured. Excellent reading. Duan Yu had thought of using the 6-pulse magical sword to counterattack, but unfortunately, he didn't manage to release the sword chi. Instead, it caused a flaw in his wave-like subtle steps, and he was almost hit by his opponent's saber. After a few times, he didn't dare to attack again. Song Qing-shu originally thought that he would fail miserably. Unexpectedly, there was a sudden commotion at the Xixia spectator stand. It turned out that Li Qiushui had come to the arena with a veil covering her face. "Fairy sister?" Duan Yu's eyes swept over there, and he instantly became excited as if he had been injected with chicken blood. He casually pointed his finger, and a wisp of sword chi shot out. The saber in the hands of the young master was instantly broken into 2 pieces. Staring blankly at the broken saber in his hand, the young master was completely confused. This kind of martial arts was really beyond his imagination. Seeing that Duan Yu was about to point his finger at him again, he was so scared that he hurriedly shouted, "Don't shoot! Don't shoot! I admit defeat." "Are you kidding me? Even the saber has been broken. If my body is hit, it will be terrible." Duan Yu was a kind person. Seeing that his opponent had admitted defeat, he naturally had no reason to attack again. "Brother Peng, Thank you for letting me win. The six-pulse magical sword and the wave-like subtle steps were really amazing. This was the thought of almost everyone in the arena. Those with good eyesight all became alert in their hearts. If they met Duan Yu, they must finish the battle quickly before he could react. Otherwise, if he kept shooting the six-pulse magical sword from a distance, they would definitely lose. In the fourth round, Prince Zongzan of Tubo was fighting against Sun Fuhu, the eldest disciple of the Skanda school. Below the stage, Shuju asked Xuandu, "Martial uncle, is this Skanda gate related to the Skanda staff of our Shaolin temple?" Xuandu replied, "The founder of the Skanda gate was a layman disciple of our Shaolin temple. By chance, he learned the Skanda staff. Later, he founded his own sect, but he remembered the kindness of Shaolin temple and didn't pass down the complete mental cultivation method. No wonder I feel like his great Skanda staff is a bit weaker." Shuju nodded. "No wonder I feel like his great Skanda staff is weaker. This Prince Zongzan is really born with great strength. He can actually fight the Skanda staff head-on," another Shaolin monk said with emotion. The Skanda staff was one of the 72 ultimate skills of Shaolin temple. It was taken from the Skanda of subduing demons and demons, so was naturally very powerful. It's just brute force. He is no match for Shuju, Xuandu said with a smile. While they were talking, Zongzan had already beaten Sun Fuhu to the ground. He was in high spirits, beating his chest with both hands to show off his muscles on the stage. Who else? Many people were really frightened by his momentum, but in the eyes of real masters, he was just a clown. "This gorilla wants to marry my granddaughter." Li Qiushui snorted inwardly. She had always liked handsome young men, not fat and boorish men like this. Pai Siluo secretly sneered, "A guy with a brain full of muscles. It seems that my chances of becoming the master of Tubo are getting higher and higher." The fifth match was between the Mongolian prince Su Yiwu and the Southern Song dynasty's Lu Shixing. Even though the people of the Southern Song dynasty didn't like him, they still wished him victory. Song Qingshu couldn't help but think. Su Yiwu's legs were broken. He thought he would withdraw from the competition, but he still insisted on participating. What was the point of this? Chapter 22:14. Su Yiwu, your leg is broken. Aren't you just asking to be humiliated? Get down quickly. Don't ruin our Mongolian reputation. Others might be afraid of him, but Wang Baobao wasn't. Seeing this, he couldn't help but mock him loudly. Su Yiwu coldly glanced at him. "Wang Baobao, don't be too proud. Every dog has its day. Who knows how miserable your fate will be in the future?" Wang Baobao laughed loudly. "Since when do we Mongolians need to comfort ourselves with an illusory fate? Since that's the case, let's see how you're going to overcome this." Su Yiwu's expression was gloomy. He ignored him and looked at his opponent. Lu Shixing, who was standing opposite him, couldn't help but shiver. His opponent clearly had a broken leg. But why did he feel as if he was being watched by a ferocious beast? "The two of you may begin." The judge saw them staring at each other and had to remind them. Su Yiwu retracted his gaze and calmly said, "You may begin." Lu Shixing clasped his hands and said, "There's no need to compete. His Highness has won." As soon as he said this, the crowd was in an uproar. Shui Baochai and the yellow-clothed woman both frowned. Shui Pan couldn't care less and immediately shouted, "You haven't even fought yet. How do you know he has won?" Lu Shixing seemed to have expected his doubt. He calmly replied, "I have seen His Highness fight in the group matches. His Highness' martial arts far surpass mine. Now that His Highness is injured, even if I win, it will be an unfair victory. My conscience won't be able to rest easy, so I admit defeat." Hearing his straightforward words, many people couldn't help but sigh in admiration. They admired his noble character and unquestionable integrity. Shui Pan was so angry that he could only curse loudly. "What a great, not a gentleman." Song Qingshu secretly sneered. No wonder the Lu brothers had acted so strangely before. It seemed that they had decided to betray Su Yiwu at that time. It was fine if these words could fool those who didn't know the truth, but how could they fool him? After the battle in Xiangyang, The Liu family knew the truth and had been planning a retreat. It seemed that they had secretly sided with the Mongolians. It was no wonder that when the princess of dual cultivation revealed that there was a new clue for the Goryeo case, the two of them were immediately assassinated. It was most likely the brothers who revealed it to the Mongolians, and then Zulwi used the Dong Ing people to achieve his goal. Liu Shixing had already walked off the stage. Shui Pan and a group of people aggressively surrounded him. But Liu Shixing remained as still as a mountain. With Liu Shidao and a group of good friends protecting him, Shui Pan couldn't do anything to him. The next match soon began on the stage. Bai Yuhuan, the young master of Pingyang by family, fought against Jin Shuzi, an expert of Diansong sect. Kidney deficiency. Song Qing-shu had a strange expression on his face. If he did not know that there were a few experts from the Diansong sect who appeared in the Heaven Sword and Dragon Saber, Transcendent Taoist, Gu Songzi, Gue Zongzi, and the naming rules were very similar, he might have thought that a brother from another world had arrived. However, everyone's attention was quickly drawn to the young master of the Bai clan. Even Shui Pan couldn't be bothered to argue with the Liu brothers and stared at him. He was wearing a wide-sleeved robe that reached the ground. His jet black hair contrasted with his snow-white skin and white robe. He was obviously a man, but he gave off an extremely breathtaking feeling. His eyes were like two bright stars hanging in the dark night sky. They were full of moisture and elegance, peaceful and pleasing to the eye. Anyone who saw him would think that not only did he have a beautiful upbringing, but his personality was also as gentle as jade. One elegant young master. Many people had the same thought at the same time. Of course, there was no lack of filthy people who wanted to find a chance to find out more about him. He was so beautiful that even if he was a man, he would still take pictures of him. In this era, it was not strange for nobles to keep male pets. The yellow-shirt girl glanced at Song Qing-shu and couldn't help but tease. Some people are not as good as you. Even Shui Baochai nodded in agreement. Although Jia Baoyu was beautiful, she still lacked a hint of gentleness when compared to this person. Song Qing-shu, on the other hand, frowned. Others couldn't tell who this young master was, but how could he not? Although the young master had deliberately changed his attire and even his appearance, Song Qing-shu had consciously trained in this aspect ever since he was deceived by Ruan Xingzhu, who impersonated Ren Yingying in Sichuan. With his current realm, he didn't need to rely on his eyes to judge people, but his aura. A person's appearance could be changed, but his inner force cultivation method and breathing method couldn't be changed. Of course, there weren't many people in the world who could determine a person's identity through these mysterious auras. This young master of the Bai clan was the leader of the Heaven's Mandate cult, Dan Yuru. Dan Yuru was indeed a master of charm. Even though she had changed her appearance to become a man, she was still so charming. In comparison, Hua Jiyu from White Hair Beauties, who was also proficient in charm, was much weaker. She must have come to participate in this competition because of the deal she made with Wang Baobao. Thinking of everything he had heard in Wang Baobao's club that day, Song Qing-shu couldn't help but feel enlightened. The result on the arena was not unexpected. Although Jing Suzi of the Diansong sect had good swordsmanship, when Dan Yuru smiled at him secretly, he was scared out of his wits and lost 90% of his kung fu. He was almost defeated by her without any resistance. After winning the competition, Dan Yuru glanced at Wang Baobao in the distance, and an inexplicable smile appeared on their lips. Song Qing-shu had roughly guessed their thoughts. After all, in the next round, Dan Yuru would fight against Su Liuwu. Now that Su Liuwu's leg was broken, how could he be a match for her? But Su Liuwu should also know this situation, so why did he stay to participate in the competition? The officials on the arena began to announce the list of the next competition. Galdan Khan against the leader of the Godly Fist School, Guisanquan. The Godly Fist School? Song Qing-shu frowned and thought hard, but he couldn't remember this school. Guisanquan, how old are you? Why are you still participating in the betrothal contest? Even the princess of Xixia is too young to be your daughter. Don't you feel ashamed? Someone who knew his background started to scold him. Guisanquan snorted coldly. I'm alone now, and I don't have a wife. I completely meet the requirements of the betrothal contest. TSK. Boos rang out. Shui Baochai explained for her companions around her. Guo Sanchuan's punches are extremely powerful, and he can kill a bull with one punch. A normal martial arts master can't even withstand 3 punches from him, so he gradually gained nickname. No one knows his real name, but he practices external martial arts, not some top-tier martial arts. While they were talking, the winner of the arena had already been decided. Galdan had fought for many years, and the martial arts he had tempered through blood and fire was naturally not something a martial arts master in the martial arts world could compare to. Seeing that Gui Sanquan was hated by the crowd, Galdan attacked mercilessly and heavily injured him, earning him a lot of cheers. The officials of the Class 1 hall ordered people to carry the injured away for treatment while they announced the next opponent, Miyamoto Musashi of Japan against the young sect master of the Everlasting Fist School, Shiming. Chapter 22:15. Song Qing-shu was one of the few people who knew about Miyamoto Musashi's strength. He had never seen him fight before, so he wanted to observe his martial arts. However, Shiming's martial arts were far inferior to his. Miyamoto Musashi didn't even draw his saber before he knocked Shiming to the ground. No one expected that the outcome would be decided so quickly. Some people were even cheering for Shiming, but when they realized what was going on, they started scolding Shiming for being a trash who couldn't even defeat a Japanese. Shiming was ashamed and left the arena dejectedly. Miyamoto Musashi stayed in the arena and scanned the crowd. He said coldly, "Before coming to the Central Plains, I thought that the martial arts of the Celestial Empire would be amazing. I didn't expect them to be so weak." Hearing his provocation, the crowd was in an uproar. Many people were filled with righteous indignation and wanted to teach this arrogant Japanese a lesson. However, they were stopped by the people from Western Xia's Class 1 hall. They still wanted to hold a duel, so they couldn't allow the crowd to descend into chaos. "This Japanese is too arrogant." Shui Pan waved his fist angrily. Lu Shidao sneered. "Why? Young Master Shui wants to teach him a lesson?" Shui Pan blushed. "I can't defeat him, but Miss Yang can. Isn't that right, Miss Yang?" Ignoring his flattering gaze, the lady in yellow frowned and said, "This person doesn't show much of his martial arts, so it's hard for me to judge who's stronger. Moreover, it's destined that we won't meet." Shui Baochai was puzzled. Why is he so arrogant? He's become the public enemy. I can't think of a reason for him to do this. Song Qing-shu explained, "This is his usual style. Miyamoto Musashi has been challenging famous experts everywhere in Japan. His martial arts have been tempered through battles, but most experts value their status and aren't willing to fight casually. Therefore, wherever he goes, he will attract as much mockery as possible, forcing the experts everywhere to fight him." The lady in yellow had a look of realization. Shui Baochai looked at him in puzzlement. "How do you know so much about Japan?" "I heard it from someone else." Haha. Song Qing-shu laughed awkwardly as he dodged the question. Shui Baochai gently bit her lips, and a trace of worry appeared between her eyebrows. "I wonder if it's the princess of the Jin Kingdom or the princess of double cultivation. By the way, that Xixia Crown Princess seems to have an unusual relationship with him." At this moment, another match had begun on the arena. The Ming Dynasty's left emissary of the light, Yang Xiao, was up against the Eagle Claw Yinqing sect's Wang Tai-yi. "Yang, don't think that you're really young just because you're a little handsome. Your daughter is about the same age as the princess, right? Aren't you ashamed to participate in this competition?" Wang Tia did not forget to launch a verbal attack first. He remembered how Gui Sanquan from the Divine Fist sect had become a street rat. He wanted to do the same. Song Qing-shu wondered why Yang Xiao was also involved in this. Could it be that Zhang Wuji's whereabouts were unknown, so Yang Xiao stepped in to fight for the marriage alliance between the Ming Dynasty and Xixia? Yang Xiao sized him up coldly. "If someone like you can participate in the betrothal contest, why can't I?" Wang Tai snorted. "Even though my martial arts are weak, I would never do something like rape Lady Amei. You're courting death." Yang Xiao was furious. This matter had always been a pain in his heart. It would be fine if Ji Xiaofu hated him, but she would rather die than listen to her master's words and kill him. She even named her daughter Buhui. When he found out about all this, he could not help but feel regret for what he had done in the past. Unfortunately, Ji Xiaofu had passed away, and there was no use in regretting. Now that the other party had poked at his scar, he could not help but feel ashamed and angry. He attacked mercilessly. Wang Tai faintly saw a black shadow with a sharp gust of wind shooting towards him. He could not help but be shocked. He hurriedly used his eagle claw kung fu to catch the black shadow. It turned out to be a small stone. Long, finger-flicking magic. Song Qingshu's expression changed. After he came to this world, he had a deep relationship with the Ming dynasty. However, he had not really fought with Yang Xiao. This could be considered as the first time he saw Yang Xiao use his martial arts. It was actually the same as Huang Yaoshi's finger-flicking magic. Why did he know finger-flicking magic? Song Qingshu wanted to find an opportunity to ask Huang Yaoshi. However, he thought that Huang Yaoshi seemed to know about him and Huang Rong. It is far worse than Eagle King's Eagle Claw Kung Fu in the past. Yang Xiao coldly snorted. His fingers shot out at the same time. Wang Tai only managed to catch the first stone before his hand went numb. He did not dare to take it head-on. He hurriedly used his flying goose Qin Gong to dodge. Unfortunately, he could only dodge once, but he could not dodge forever. He let out a blood-curdling scream and covered his mouth with his hand. Obviously, Yang Xiao was angry that he had spoken rudely, so the stone directly broke a few of his teeth. The Ming dynasty's Yang Xiao wins. The referee on the side of the stage was worried that someone would die, so he hurriedly announced the result. Wang Tai's eyes were filled with anger. However, the exchange just now made it clear that he was no match for Yang Xiao. He could only resentfully leave the stage. The girl in yellow stared at Yang Xiao's voice thoughtfully. It was only after Xue Baochai reminded her that she knew it was her turn to fight in the next round. Southern Prince Song Baiyang against Nine Dragons' sex disciple, Yi Xiaoji. When Song Qingshu heard the name Baiyang, he almost laughed out loud. How could such a beautiful girl use such a careless name? However, he quickly realized that the name Ying Luo sounded like a woman's name. It definitely could not be used. Moreover, she was ranked 8th among her sisters, so she chose this name. Yi Xiaoji saw that his opponent had red lips and white teeth. He thought that he was a pretty boy and could not help but be overjoyed. Young master, as the saying goes, swords have no eyes. I am proficient in the Nine Dragons whip technique. If I accidentally hit your face later, it would not be good to leave any scars on your fair face. The girl in yellow flicked her wrist, and a long whip appeared from her sleeve. A faint smile appeared on her lips. What a coincidence! I am also proficient in the whip technique. She had changed her identity to participate in the competition. The Nining White Bone Claw was too famous, and the White Python whip technique was more low-key. Suddenly, the sound of people sucking in breaths rang out in the drill ground. One could faintly hear someone mumbling to himself, "What the hell? Why are all the men participating in this matchmaking competition more beautiful than the other?" There was naturally no suspense in the result of the competition. Yi Xiaoji's Nine Dragons whip technique was too fancy, but not steady enough. As soon as he came into contact with the White Python whip technique, he felt as if he had been struck by lightning and was quickly defeated. Next match, Japan's Crown Prince Yu Chai Xiaoxing against Gemini Sex Ni Buddha and Ni Buer. Hearing the referee's announcement, everyone looked at each other. Even Yu Chai Xiaoxing was a little baffled. Why were there two opponents? Did the officials make a mistake? However, after the Gemini Sect contestants went up the stage, they realized that they were not wrong. There were really two people. However, they looked exactly the same. It was obvious that they were twins. This is a princess's matchmaking competition. Why are the two of you here? A busybody could not help but laugh. Ni Buddha and Ni Buer replied, "We have been inseparable since we were born. Against one person, we will fight together. Against 10,000 people, we will also fight together." Their voices, intonation, and expressions were exactly the same. Chapter 22:16. Isn't the princess in trouble? She doesn't even know that you two took turns to do it? Someone scolded jokingly. Why would she be in trouble if she has two husbands? The two brothers were puzzled. In their opinion, a husband marrying two wives was definitely a good deal. It should be the same for a woman marrying two husbands. The crowd roared with laughter. They finally understood that there was something wrong with these two's brains. Song Qing-shu was speechless. He thought that Class 1 Hall's examination was child's play. How did these people pass the examination? Li Qinglu, who was hiding in the dark, was trembling with anger. What are those people from Class 1 Hall doing? Why did they let them in? Li Qiushui giggled. Qinglu, don't be angry. When you grow up, you'll know the benefits of having two husbands. It's just that these two are a little too ugly. It's not a loss if they were handsome young men. Her words attracted Yelu Nanshin's attention. She wondered what would happen if Li Qinglu was led astray by such a senior. Big Brother Song would be in trouble. Hidekitsu's laughter came from the stage. I thought that only we Japanese have such a tradition. I didn't expect you people from the Central Plains to do this as well. Ha! Both sides on the stage are disgusting. Damn it, it's best if they die together. Many people below the stage cursed. It was obvious that the two of them were annoyed. Although Ni Buddha and Ni Boer looked silly, they were not careless in their attacks. Most importantly, they were twin brothers and could be said to be telepathic. When they performed a set of joint attack technique, their tacit understanding was even better than the dual sword harmony. Chai Shoshing blocked the left, but could not block the right. He blocked the top, but could not block the bottom. Very soon, he was beaten black and blue all over. Baka! Hidekitsu finally jumped out of the ring. He didn't dare to fight the two in close combat anymore. Hurry up and surrender. You're no match for us, the Ni brothers said foolishly. I was just playing with you guys. I haven't even used my Japanese ninja arts. Hidekitsu was angry. Japanese ninja arts? Let alone the Ni brothers, even the people on the training ground were curious. Many people had heard of the mysteriousness of Japanese ninja arts, but no one had seen it before. All of them widened their eyes. Metal escape technique. As soon as Chai Shoshing finished speaking, he lifted up his clothes, and it was as if a sun had appeared in the surroundings, and it was dazzling to the point everyone was utterly unable to open their eyes. Only Song Qing-shu and a few others could clearly see that the inside of Chai Shoshing's clothes were covered with a layer of shiny gold foil. Now that the scorching sun was overhead, the sunlight was reflected by the gold foil, immediately dazzling the enemy's eyes. Okay, two screams were heard. When the golden light faded, Ni Buddha and Ni Boer were already lying on the ground. The outcome of the battle had been decided. The people on the Southern Song Dynasty's side were amazed. The Japanese's ninjutsu is really amazing. It's just a trick, the yellow-robed woman disagreed. In my opinion, it's not as good as Baoyu's move last time. That's the real metal escape technique. Song Qing-shu let out an embarrassed laugh. Actually, in the Japanese ninja sects, there were all kinds of metal evasion arts. Some used reflexes to stimulate the enemy's eyes, while others used money to bribe the enemy. Next battle, Qiu Tongfu of the Southern Song Qing-shu versus the Crown Prince of Goryeo. Soon, a young master beside Song Qing-shu stood up and swaggered onto the stage. He was the son of Ma Qiumin, the secretary of the Privy Council and the inspector of the Jianghuai army. This Qiumin had always been at odds with Han Xingzhou. During the Northern Expedition, he often held Han Xingzhou back. After Qiu Tongfu went onto the stage, the Western Xia officials continued to call the Crown Prince of Goryeo. But in reality, everyone knew that the Crown Prince of Goryeo would definitely not be able to participate in the competition after what happened to the Goryeo ambassadors. Everything was just a formality. Look at how proud he is. Xue Pan couldn't help but feel a little sour when he thought about why he didn't have such good luck. This guy clearly has something going on with Lu Shidao's sister, but he actually came to the competition too. LV Wendy's daughter? Song Qing-shu was stunned. Xue Pan was very clear about these rumors. so he probably wouldn't spread it. I heard that they were already preparing to get married. I wonder why they came to participate in the Western Xia competition. Shui Pan said angrily. Hearing that there was such a relationship, Song Qing-shu couldn't help but ponder. Next match, the Mongolian Little Devil Master Fang Yiyu versus the Zheng clan's third young master, Zheng Keshuang. The Western Xia official announced the next match. Unfortunately, Fang Yiyu was already dead and was destined not to come. Seeing that the handsome young man on the stage looked somewhat familiar, Song Qing-shu asked Shui Baochai, "Sister Bao, what's the relationship between this Zheng Keshuang and the Zheng clan's crown prince Zheng Keshuang?" Shui Baochai was from the Imperial City Department, so she naturally knew about all kinds of information. "He's Zheng Keshuang's younger brother." "Oh," Song Qing-shu asked, and no longer paid attention to the Zheng clan. He didn't care about a mere Zheng clan at the moment. Because of Fang Yeyu's absence, Zheng Keshuang won without a fight. The Western Xia official announced the next match, Wooden Table Ethics Division's Chun Jialuo versus Qinghai Sect's Xiao Xiaoa. Hearing the identities of both sides, everyone began to whisper, "Isn't Chun Jialuo the Red Flower Society's main branch leader? How did he become a member of the Wooden Table Ethics Division?" I heard that the Red Flower Society and the Golden Snake King, Song Qing-shu, were at odds. In the end, the Red Flower Society was defeated by Song Qing-shu and had to hide in the western region. Offended the Golden Snake King? Then there's nothing we can do. If the Golden Snake King comes to participate in this matchmaking, what else can he do? But everyone knows that the Golden Snake King has many female confidants and has a wife. Will the Western Xia princess marry him? The Western Xia country can't afford to lose face like this. But the Great Song's two princesses are also married to him. That's because the Golden Snake King has done the Great Song's imperial court a great favor. It's a special situation. Hearing the discussions around her, Shui Baochai looked a little embarrassed. King Qi is quite famous. After all, he was now the King Qi of the Great Song, and they were on the same side. Who doesn't know of his dissolute reputation? The yellow-robed woman sneered. Her tone seemed to be full of resentment. At the side, Song Qing-shu pretended not to hear it. Anyway, he was not afraid of being recognized in Jia Baoyu's appearance. The winner of the match on the stage was quickly decided. Although the Qinghai sect swordsmanship was unique, Chun Jialuo had learned from a famous teacher and was once a protagonist. How could Xiao Xiaohe be his match? The next match was Nalan Rongruo of the Qin Kingdom. Because of the conflict in the inn, he couldn't even deal with the Gaoli, so everyone looked down on him. Only Wu Yunzhu cheered for him excitedly. After all, the two of them were childhood sweethearts, so he naturally wanted to see him win the heart of the beauty. This time, his opponent was from a sect that he had never heard of. It sounded like an extra. Although Nalan Rongruo was a little weak, he was a proper Imperial Guard. There was no suspense in defeating such an opponent. The protagonist of the next match was Prince Zalindin of Horazm. Of course, the real Zalindin had already returned. Madame Zhen, who was impersonating him, was now obeying Song Qing-shu's arrangements and no longer appeared. Naturally, she couldn't participate in the match. Thinking of Madame Zhen's voluptuous appearance that night, Song Qing-shu felt his mouth go dry. The women of the western regions were indeed more proactive and enthusiastic. Chapter 22:17. The person on the stage was somewhat familiar. It was Guijing and Huang Rong's disciple Dao. Since his elder brother was here, and they had always been inseparable, his younger brother should also be here. Sure enough, he soon saw Xiao Wu cheering for him below the stage. Why are they here for the betrothal contest? Song Qing-shu really didn't understand. Why did they come to participate in the betrothal contest in troubled times? Hearing his question, Shui Baochai explained, they came to Xingqing Prefecture on Madame Guo's order. Huang Rong? Song Qing-shu was still confused. Shui Baochai answered while observing the situation on the stage. Hero Guo disappeared during the northern expedition, and Madame Guo has been looking for him. Recently, she learned that Hero Guo appeared in the northern grasslands. Hong Qigong and the others of the beggar sect have already gone to look for him, But Madame Gua is worried that the information is inaccurate, so she sent 2 disciples to Xingqing Prefecture to try their luck. Now that the Xixia princess is looking for a betrothal, envoys from all the countries will come. There is no place better informed than Xingqing Prefecture. The Wu brothers came this time to see if they could find out masters' whereabouts from the people from the northern countries. Song Qingshu couldn't help but sigh at Huang Rong's ingenuity. She didn't dare to bet on one side, but on both. He didn't know if she had other arrangements. She had just given birth. Otherwise, she would have come in person, and I would have a chance to see her again. How do you know so clearly? Song Qingshu suddenly realized. Shui Baochai rolled her eyes. Who told you to stay out all day and night? The Wu brothers specially came to visit us 2 days ago and told us their purpose. At the same time, they asked us to help pay attention to Hero Guo's whereabouts. Song Qingshu smiled embarrassedly and wisely didn't answer. Because Zalanden didn't appear on the stage, Dao won without a fight. Shui Pan couldn't help muttering, "Damn, why are these people so lucky? I hope my opponent is also absent." Song Qingshu couldn't help but ask who his opponent was. After hearing the name, he could only give him a sympathetic look. The next match was between Hua Ai, the young lord of the Wooden Table Ethics tribe, and Lan Chu, the young lord of the 8 Immortal Sword faction. Seeing that Hua Qingtong was staring nervously at the stage, Yang Xiao comforted her. "Miss Hua, you don't have to worry. Although the 8 Immortal Sword technique has its own uniqueness, it is not considered a superior sword technique overall. In the entire 8 Immortal sect, only sect leader Lan Qin is worth mentioning. Left Emissary Yang is indeed knowledgeable." Hua Qingtong smiled in response, but she still did not dare to relax. The people from the 8 Immortal Sword sect might not be experts, but she knew what kind of person her brother was. He had even begged his master to teach him the 3-part swordsmanship. But after practicing for a while, he felt that the swordsmanship was too roundabout and preferred to fight with brute force. She was well aware of her brother's level. There was absolutely no hope for him to win, but at the very least, he couldn't be eliminated so quickly. He didn't want to leave a bad impression on the princess. In fact, she had secretly analyzed her elder brother's advantages and disadvantages. Compared with big countries like Mongolia and Jin Kingdom, the Wood Table Luan tribe was indeed a bit weak. But they also had their own advantages. First, they were close to the Western Xia country, so they could help each other out. In addition, her elder brother was handsome and tall, so maybe he could win the princess's favor. 51, of course. She also understood that the hope of winning the princess's hand in the end was still too small. At this moment, the winner had been decided on the stage. After all, Hua Ai grew up on the back of a horse, so she was skilled in archery and horsemanship. Her opponent, the people from the 8 Immortal Sword sect, had not learned any superior martial arts, so they were evenly matched. In the end, Hua Ai barely won with one move because of her good physique. Galdan, Lao Siluo, and the others below the stage were watching with sparkling eyes. This Hua Ai was really an idiot. At the same time, they all secretly sighed that it was a pity that Hua Qingtong was a woman. In recent years, the Muzhuoluan tribe could become so strong and even defeat the Mongols several times. To a large extent, it was the work of this yellow-robed woman with green feathers. Unfortunately, she was a woman and was destined to not inherit the position of the tribe leader. In the future, when Muzhuoluan died, the whole tribe was destined to decline. If he could not marry the princess of Xixia this time, it would be better to propose to the Wood Table Ethics tribe instead. If he could marry Hua Qingtong, he might be able to annex the Wood Table Ethics tribe in the future and strengthen his strength. With her identity and ability, it would not be a loss to marry an ugly woman. Moreover, she was graceful and radiant, a rare beauty in the world. The only trouble was that she seemed to be engaged to Zhang Wuji of the Ming dynasty. However, Zhang Wuji had disappeared for a long time, and there were also rumors that he was dead. If that was true, the opportunity had come. Next, Lao Siluo of Qinghai will fight against the 8-armed Neza of the Baji school, Qi Naiji. The call from the stage interrupted Lao Siluo's thoughts. He gathered his thoughts and decided to focus on the princess of Xixia and Zhongzhan first. Prince Zhongzhan, who was sitting in the distance, noticed the provocative look in his eyes and shouted angrily. He could not help but pull Jiumaji aside and said, "King Ming, this Lao Siluo is too arrogant. Let's find someone to kill him tonight." Jiumaji said in a deep voice, "Lao Siluo's martial arts are not weak. Moreover, Li Lizuan has a large group of Tantric Buddhism experts to protect him. At the same time, there are also swordsmen of the Qinghai sect under his command. It will not be easy to kill him. King Ming, your martial arts are invincible. Why are you afraid of Li Lizuan and the swordsmen of the Qinghai sect?" Prince Zhongzhan said impatiently. Hearing that his martial arts were invincible, Jiumaji could not help but show a smile on his face. "I'm naturally not afraid of those people in terms of martial arts, but Lao Siluo has a strong army. Now that Zanpu is old and in poor health, if I really kill him, it will cause his army to retaliate and attack Log City. Won't Zanpu have to work hard?" Hearing that Zanpu's health might be in danger, Prince Zhongzhan's eyes lit up. Wouldn't that mean that he could take over Zanpu's position earlier? However, he was a little worried that Lao Siluo's army would really attack Log City. If that happened, Tubo would fall apart and he would not be able to be Zanpu. Thinking of all the pros and cons, Prince Zhongzhan was momentarily at a loss. Princess Jinqing's gentle voice came from the side. "King Ming is right. It is better not to start a war. Your father's body cannot withstand the torment, and I do not want to see the Tubo people lose their homes because of the war." Soft-hearted, Prince Zhongzhan disagreed, but seeing her gentle and beautiful appearance, he could not bear to disrespect her. "Mother, you are right." A scream came from the stage. Qin Aiji had already been hit in the chest by Lao Siluo and was sent flying out of the stage. Shui Pan could not help but curse. This Qin Aiji's nickname is so impressive. Who knew he would be so useless? The yellow-clothed woman said indifferently, "In the Jianghu, the more impressive the nickname and the longer the name, the less capable the person is. Of course, this Qin Aiji's martial arts are not bad, better than many of the people who went up to the stage before. However, Lao Siluo's skills are inherited from the Tantric Buddhism, so he is naturally not his match." You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.